Welcome, Ultras and Switchy sisters alike, to episode 11 of the weekly episodic gaming adjacent live stream podcast show. This is Switch to Ultra on your regularly scheduled Monday. If you've been following us all week, then you know it has been a very, very busy week. Starting Wednesday night with the GameStop midnight release event for the Nintendo Switch 2. And the same day, PlayStation hosted their version of the Direct, the PlayStation State of Play. The next day, June 5th, Thursday, marked the first full day of the Nintendo Switch 2, where my co-parent and I woke up at the crack of noon and played the console until we couldn't hack it anymore. The next day, the first day of the weekend, on top of the Nintendo Switch 2 continuing its reign for attention, alongside the Summer Games Fest 2025. After the last Electronics Entertainment Expo E3 in 2019, which was, by the way, the event covered in the first ever episode BH Ultra hosted, ever podcast episode. The first ever podcast episode I hosted. So this is sort of like a homecoming for me. This time of year when everyone wants to announce their games for the coming year and coming autumn. A power vacuum broke out, and that was filled eventually by Jeff Keighley, creator of the Game Awards and bestest friend of Hideo Kojima. The Summer Games Fest is the new E3, just in a world where every major game company learned that it's more convenient and profitable to host their own broadcast instead of attending someone else's. But we've been on YouTube for a while, and I've seen so many of my favorites attend E3 to play the newest games, and I always dreamed of covering an event like that when I was watching from a young age. For better or for worse, that is the Summer Games Fest. We may be nostalgic for E3, but every year we remember and realize, oh yeah, most games aren't that great. And then Xbox hosted their own live stream, sure. I have streamed 50 hours the last week alone, almost unbroken. And today, we went through nearly 7 hours of the Summer Games announcements. And for your convenience, we have narrowed it down to the only games worth talking about, at least to us. I am losing my voice, I am very tired, but I am here. Welcome to the Switch 2 Ultra family. I'm your co-parent, BH Ultra.
And I am your co-parent, Switchy.
And Switchy, how have you been enjoying your Nintendo Switch 2?
I haven't gotten to play it too much. I got home from Andrew's house Friday night, was able to set it up, took a little bit, and then basically I've played a couple hours of Mario Kart these past couple days, but nothing extensive, unfortunately. But I'll catch up.
We did have a lot of our very early feelings on the outside of the games themselves, because I do want to get into those 6 specific games that were exclusive day one Switch 2 games, and I played everything on my stream. Is there any other games you got other than Mario Kart? Have you been playing anything else on the Switch 2?
No. I mean, the only thing I've had on my Switch so far is Mario Kart. One thing I might be playing soon, just because I haven't played it yet, is Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. That was a Switch 1 release. I might, I also kind of want to play something on the GameCube, probably F-Zero, mostly because, I mean, maybe I'd like Soul Calibur. It doesn't seem that like it's totally my thing. It might be. And Wind Waker, I think I'd rather just play the HD version, even though that might be a bit of a faux pas to say.
I think people like the art style of the GameCube version, but the quality of life and control changes of the remake.
Yeah, and especially the speeding up sail thing. I remember liking that.
Yeah, there really is no in-between there. Wind Waker is the only one I haven't, I didn't do anything off stream. I actually, this time around, made a second account so that I can play the games on my own just whenever I have the free time and not have it be missing. I wouldn't unlock things that didn't appear on stream, and that way I can have my stream series that I continue and people can watch live and watch the progress of that. And on the full weekend stream, because like I said, it was Wednesday midnight, and then all Thursday day, all Friday day, all Saturday day, most of Sunday day. I ended that one a little earlier, only 4 hours earlier. But that was over 24 hours on the Nintendo Switch 2. Not unbroken, but in general, I think 36 or maybe 40 just of that alone. And I wanted to see everything. I didn't buy a whole lot of things other than those 6 exclusive day one games, are exclusive with the Asterisk. I also got Street Fighter 6 because I had the Amiibo cards and the Amiibo themselves. And also I just like Street Fighter 6. I got that in Split Fiction, because Split Fiction is a game that came out earlier this year, but I didn't really have an excuse to play it. I didn't play any Cyberpunk. I mean, outside of the Switch, I haven't played any Cyberpunk at all, but I also tested all of the Switch 1 edition games that launched on this, or not that launched, but had upgrades on the Switch 2. A lot of them are game share based. Like, I think that some of these games run better, maybe. There are 4 games, but I'll narrow it down to 2 because they're games that have equivalents on the console that, we're getting a raid. Hey, welcome to the Switch 2 Ultra podcast. We're talking about the Nintendo
Who's
Switch
raiding
2.
us? What do we do?
Oh, a friend, Glittery Virgo. Oh my gosh. Friend of the show. Thanks for the raid. This never happened on this podcast show before. If you're watching the VOD or the edited video later, these are live on Twitch. Although I do give love to my friends over at YouTube as well. All the dedicated YouTube viewers. I've been kind of neglecting them the last couple of days because I was very away from my computer and very focused on the console. But there are games like 51 Clubhouse games, or Clubhouse Classics, and New Super Mario Bros. U, and Super Mario 3D World, that it seems that the upgrade they added was game share. And we tested out game share and game chat, and it is a lot of fun. We had some hiccups there, but also, like, Dan was playing in handheld mode, and the other 2 people playing, me and friend of the show, Gnarly Collector, were hooked up to Ethernet, and it was relatively good. Like, it was a stable connection. Granted, I was the one playing on the native hardware, so maybe the connection was a little different for them. But, I mean, the microphone sounds like how a video game console microphone would sound if you were talking into it. It's not bad, but, it's not going to sound like a proper microphone.
Okay. So it worked pretty well in the microphone.
Yeah, I would say the only things that had a noticeable difference in how they ran, or rather graphical fidelity. YouTube chat gonna unionize. Listen, I'm reading it right now. It just takes a little bit. Listen, I got a lot of papers on my desk. You dropped the manila folder with the YouTube chat on my desk. I will go through it. I need a secretary for these things. But the main games, I said 4 games, but it's easier to talk about them in 2 because, they're basically the same game, are Scarlet and Violet and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And those are the ones where I really noticed how different they play and run.
Wow, okay.
Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild look great in 60 frames. I've said before that, like, maybe I can't really notice, like, it's not that big of a selling point to me. And obviously that is true. Like, I prefer how a game plays over how it looks. But those ones do look fantastic. And Scarlet and Violet still look pretty bad because it's more of a texture issue with that game. Like, you can't... Even if the game runs better on the Switch 2, which it does, nothing lags in that game anymore. And they're really using the power of the Switch 2.
I didn't expect it to be that good.
No, it's like, it runs like a video game. Like, it seems like this is how it was originally intended, which is strange. I've seen a lot of feedback or a lot of discourse about that, about like, well, clearly Game Freak is trying to make games for the Switch 2 or something more powerful, and the Switch just isn't as powerful. But that wouldn't be the case if Game Freak is continuing to make games for the Switch 1.
Game Freak doesn't optimize their games properly. That's what's actually happening.
Right.
Much like, maybe it's rude to say that, but yeah, no, I mean...
It's fair to say that, and there was, I think, a League of Scarlet and Violet from, like, a build of 2021, and it seemed a lot more ambitious, that it had a lot better-looking textures, that it seems like something they did at the midnight hour was downgrade the textures, and without a direct remaster or remake, you can't change that just on new hardware. So from an art direction standpoint, it still doesn't look great, but those were the ones that, like, I noticed, like, oh my god, this does run so much better on the Switch too.
Okay, I'm surprised Breath of the Wild runs better. Because people have people ever really complained about how it runs? I think I remember hearing that, like, during snow, it sometimes has issues or something like that. But it's been years.
Well, the difference is Scarlet and Violet are just, like, playable on the Switch 2 now, and the Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild I played are the Switch 2 editions. So that put them in 60 frames. I don't know what the difference would be. I'm sure they could do free upgrades for certain games and just allow them to run better on the Switch 2 without having to be a Switch 2 edition. Because as far as Switch 2 editions go, Metroid Prime 4 having mouse controls, I think, is a sell. Mario Party Jamboree involving the camera and an entirely new game mode is a sell. Pokemon Legends ZA, I suppose, running a lot better is a sell. And I really like... I rediscovered my love for Tears of the Kingdom in playing it, but I don't know if I would, if I didn't have online, if I would have justified that being a specific purchasable Switch 2 edition. I mean, they are good games. I just never, it's less about how important the 60 frames is and more about, like, how little that seemed to matter to me to begin with. Like, I like Tears of the Kingdom even before it ran in 60.
I actually didn't notice it. No, it ran only in 30.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's what I'm saying is those were the only ones I noticed because you mentioned Echoes of Wisdom, and I played Link's Awakening Echoes of Wisdom, and maybe they run in 60 instead of 30 now. Maybe they look better. Maybe they have faster load times. But I couldn't really notice anything because those games have more. They go in a different direction artistically. So,
Yeah.
like playing Link's Awakening remake, I'm like, I don't know, this might run better, but if it is, I can't notice it. It looks more or less like when I
Okay.
played it last year.
What did that game get a patch?
Yeah, they got. Well, that didn't get a Switch 2 edition, but like Scarlet and Violet, it got a Switch 2 update where they run better. It was one of the free Switch 2 editions that launched with the console.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because we think we played Odyssey. We did play Odyssey. I don't think we did. But honestly, I don't really remember it running noticeably better than it than I remember. And to be fair, I haven't touched I haven't fully played the game. I hadn't fully played the game in about, maybe 3 years. So it could also just be my memory being a little foggy. I don't actually remember what FPS it originally ran on. I thought it was 60, but I might be wrong.
I thought that at first, but then when I played Scarlet and Violet and Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I noticed I realized how different it felt. So, and I didn't feel that way when it came to Bowser's Fury or Odyssey or even like the 3D collection, which didn't get a Switch 2 edition, but did get an update that day. I would say the main updates that I noticed and appreciated were those 3D Zelda games and the Pokemon games. I've seen some people playing Ultimate, and if you played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and play the characters I play, which are like Incineroar and Banjo, and are at the bottom of the character select screen, and you want to pick an alternate costume, you'll notice that the character models will kind of disappear, and it's to my understanding that this is because the game loads all of the costumes individually in character order. So if you want to pick like Mario's alternate costume, it'll load right away. But if you're at the bottom of the character select screen, it has to load all of the other alternate costumes.
It has to go through all of them, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
To the point where like I had muscle memory for which skin I liked. Like I knew that it wouldn't appear on screen. I just had my bumpers and C and Y buttons down to pick which skin I knew I had because I knew it wasn't going to show up. But apparently that is no longer an issue. The load times in Smash Ultimate, from what I've seen, look insane, almost to the point where the little matchup screen where their eyes are glowing lasts like a couple frames. Like you can barely see it. It just loads into the match almost immediately.
Wow. Okay. I should watch some of those comparison videos. I think it would really be eye-opening for me. Because like I think right now I think I saw a video where it showed the load time being faster for Smash Bros. Yeah. But now I'm kind of in this moment where whenever I play it, well, actually I haven't done it much yet, but I assume when I'm going to be playing Switch games on the Switch 2, I'm going to be not sure if it's noticeably faster or not, and it's going to be really frustrating to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you're not totally sure if there actually is a difference, you're just psyching yourself out. I hate that feeling.
The other main thing
we noticed,
the other main thing we noticed is playing Mario Kart World in split screen. It's not in 4K because it's a 4-player split screen where it looks a lot better when you're just playing by yourself, and it looks better on the Switch. When I was streaming, I didn't really have an opportunity to look at the screen, but late last night I was playing it a lot just because I knew I didn't have to wake up until later. I had work planned after the pod today. But this one's going to run long, probably, and I think I've done enough the previous weekend. I'm just going to do nothing today, probably, then start fresh tomorrow. I'm going to keep pushing that back. Also, real quick, speaking of this pod, because we have a lot to cover and because we have a lot of things to go over on the screen, we have other segments that need to kind of be pushed around because this is the big E3 time, because so much happened between this episode and the last episode, so much so that it even feels like multiple weeks have transpired. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes.
Especially when you fly around, it feels like last week does not feel like last week. Last week feels like 2 weeks ago.
No, anyway, I didn't think I would have had the opportunity to go to the theater because, the weekend was very taken up, but on Tuesday, and the other reason I can't really do as much is because my studio lights that I normally use for lighting went out and stopped working, like, right before. I think it was on Tuesday, so it was, like, right before all this happened. So on Tuesday, I went to go see Tim Robinson's Friendship, and I actually don't remember where I had it on my letterbox, but I did really like this movie. It's very absurd. I think a lot of people are going to go into it not knowing what it is and be kind of turned off by it. I think the best equivalence is like something akin to Napoleon Dynamite, where it's not really going to hit its stride now, but people are going to, although there aren't like DVD sales. Anyway, I'm going to put it I think above the monkey, but below Bring Her Back. That seems fair, because I really did like Bring Her Back. All right, so that's where I am with movies. I just wanted to get that out of the way so that we didn't have to, because no more franchise ones came out. I guess I have to watch the rest of the Jurassic Park movies at some point. But most of the stuff we're going to talk about are the big game announcements. But we're going to get through the Switch 2 now. Are there any things that you, like Switch 1 games that you have in your library that you think might be a little different on the Switch 2, that you want to play on the Switch 2, or upcoming games that you think you might get on it? Because it seems like everyone I tested it with, because obviously I was streaming for long periods of time and I couldn't uphold the stream all on my own. I had a rotation of guests, and everybody, I mean, you are on this show, you are an internet personality. We look at these games and we cover them from a, let's say, journalistic standpoint. And I had friends over that were excited, but I also had a lot of friends who were just like, I know in real life that kind of heard about the Switch 2 and didn't really prepare, didn't plan on buying it because it didn't, it seemed like a lot of money. But everyone really fell in love with Mario Kart World. That's the main thing. And that really does seem like the seller of the console, because I think I was a little underwhelmed on how much the Switch 2 launch focused on Switch 1 games and how much the year in general seems to, and I mean, I know that is what it is, and that's what you get with the Switch 2. And I would prefer backwards compatibility over not. But yeah, I think people kind of misappropriate or believe that Nintendo console launches have so many heavy hitters. But when it comes to day one launches, I feel like 1 or 2 games is about where they're normally landing. Like the 3DS one was pretty weak. Even like the Nintendo 64 launched with Pilot Wings and Mario 64,
Infamously,
and that was it.
I keep bringing that up when people talk shit. It's funny. I think I'm just batting for Nintendo more than I should. But on some level, I just want to be fair and at the very least talk shit for something that deserves to be talked shit about.
Yeah. But also, I understand the sentiment, especially if you were like bullied for having a Wii U as a kid. You do kind of have a chip on your shoulder a little, and I'm talking about me mainly. Have a chip on your shoulder about like, actually, I like it. They make good games.
Definitely. Actually, I want to search something up real quick. What were the Nintendo Wii launch titles?
Oh God, it had to have been Twilight Princess, right? Yeah. Well, while you're looking that up, that seems like the perfect opportunity to... A lot of people have been playing a lot of different games, but if you watched any of the streams that I did the weekend, there are only 6 games that are specifically Switch 2 exclusives that launched on June 5th. There are other games that launched on the Switch 2 June 5th and launched elsewhere other days. There are games that came out on that day that happen to be on the Switch, and there are games that have now come to the Switch 2 as the console came out. And I played some of those, I looked at some of those, but these 6 are the 6 day one exclusives. So this is the launch lineup of the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, not accounting for Switch 2 editions and the GameCube player, because if we were counting like, oh, but this game released before, was launched before, there are 2 remakes on this list. So do you have any thoughts on these 6 games? I guess we could begin with Mario Kart World, because that's the one we've probably both played the most.
Yeah. Well, so far I'm enjoying Mario Kart World. I guess one thing that's kind of perplexing me, maybe not perplexing me, but it's definitely of note to me, is that I like Mario Kart World as a game. I'm not super thrilled about it as a launch title.
Interesting.
I think that's maybe it's not really a big deal. I guess for me, it's weird to imagine a spin-off of a main series of a series being a launch title. You know what I mean? Because, it's like Mario like platforming are the main games to me. And I think that's how they're sold, that's how they're thought. But, for what it's worth, I mean, when I say sold, I mean how they're advertised. Like the core Mario games are platformers. Now, with that being said, from a business standpoint, it absolutely makes sense. I'm pretty sure Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of the best-selling games of all time. And I think for a lot of people who aren't, really big video game fans, their biggest experiences with Mario come from Mario Kart. So I'm kind of saying the point that I have and then countering it and saying like, well, Switchy. I guess it's weird because, one thing I liked, and to be fair, I guess this game also came out on the Wii U. For the Switch, the big launch title was Zelda. That was a new core installment of a big series. And I think this isn't a big deal. I find that much more apt for a console launch, just a game that's just a new installment in a huge thing. And I guess to be fair, Mario Kart World is a new installment for the next is a new big installment for something. But I guess I just like the idea of an adventure game being the big new Nintendo console, big new Nintendo launch title. That being said, that's just like a nitpick. It's not actually a big deal.
I think Mario Kart
And we
World
have
is.
Bonanza next month.
I think Mario Kart World is sort of splitting the difference or bridging the gap of what you're talking about. Where
Yeah.
I think Mario Kart World is in and of itself sort of an adventure title. Of course, not exactly what you're talking about, but I remember all the other Mario Kart games. Like, as I was holding Mario Kart World in my hands, like in my bed, I was thinking back to when I got Mario Kart 7 on like Christmas Eve when I first got my 3DS because they let me open that one early and I was just playing it the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking back, like, oh man, why doesn't that ever stay? Why do I get obsessed and get hooked on Mario Kart for a short amount of time and then drop it at some point? Is it just because I'm not as excited for these series? What happens with that? And maybe it's just a series that you like playing with friends and then it isn't really fun to play by yourself. But I will say in previous Mario Kart games, there's definitely a lull period where once you do all the cups and you fully run through all of them and get first in all of them, there's kind of, other than playing online, not a whole lot to do. Whereas it's still early days. Like, the game hasn't even been out for a week, and I've been playing other games. It hasn't been all of my time. I've been playing Mario Kart World nonstop. But it seems like there is a lot more just to do and discover in Mario Kart World that it's gonna, at the very least, take me a lot longer to get bored of this game. At least a month until, like, Donkey Kong comes out. I think the best equivalent for me from a personal standpoint is Mario Kart World sort of feels like my Smash Ultimate, where I had always played Smash Bros. And I loved those games, and I would play it when people came over, and it was like a friend game for me and a party game, even though I played it by myself all the time too. But Ultimate was the first game where I was kind of really feeling the controls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, no, this feels great to play. I'm actually getting good at it. I wasn't great, but I was good at it. And it's the first time I ever felt the need to like go to a tournament or play online. Because in Smash 4, although I liked playing with my friends, I never bothered learning tech or anything because it just seemed way out of my pay grade or above my head.
Yeah.
But Mario Kart World, there's so many things where this feels like the first Mario Kart that I might get good at. Like, I might be good at, because I thought before that, like, oh, you can't be good at Mario Kart, you know, it's all luck, it just depends on what the items you get. And maybe that's a misappropriation, but the previous games felt like that. But Mario Kart World, that feels good to control, and once you understand how it plays like one of the best Mario Kart games, if not the. I think this is on track to be the best Mario Kart game. It really depends on how they support it going forward. The YouTube chat has said, I feel like there's going to be new DK and Pauline skins for Mario Kart around the time new DK game comes out. I'd be interested to see.
That's actually a safe bet.
If they continue to update this game, because costumes are the easiest way of doing that. And, you know, the game is in fact $80, and maybe it's not worth $80 now, but maybe it's one of those games that will be worth $80 in like a year's time if they do continue to support it. Because that seems to be the way gaming is going nowadays anyway. And it doesn't need to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the prospect of DLC. For some reason, there's a part of me that like there's a gut feeling I had that this game's just not going to have DLC, but I think I'm just going crazy. I feel like there's a lot of room for DLC with this game. I think new characters and new costumes are a pretty safe bet. I'd be surprised if they don't do anything like that. Maybe not. I don't know. New tracks, though. We actually talked about this, I think maybe on stream, about the potential of, everything's already in the world. Where are the new tracks going to be? And that's something that I think is easy to ask. But, you know, they could definitely find a way around it. I guess I'm wondering, what's incomplete in this game? What do you think people are going to be mad about it? Because I remember someone saying that this seems like a game that's going to be controversial. Like, a lot of people aren't going to like it. I think I already prefer it over 8. Like, something about 8 kind of just now is just kind of paling in comparison.
I think in early days, the overworld map is sort of daunting because when you check the map, like if you hit the Y button and open up the map, it just shows you like the key art of all the stages together. It doesn't really show you where you are in context of that. You can't zoom in on the map, and your mini map you can't look at beyond it being in the corner of your screen, and that map is a lot more helpful. There are games where you can, I mean, if we're using Tears of the Kingdom with the Switch 2 edition as an example, you load up your iPhone app, and it says like, oh, you can collect these things here. There will be like comprehensive guides, but I kind of don't want to look at them. I feel like this is a game where I want to stumble across everything. So I guess you could say it's daunting. It really depends on how important you feel costumes are. Like, I'm a Dry Bones diehard because the day will come where I can't play as Dry Bones because it happens every now and then. So I appreciate him when I can, even though there are a lot of really fun characters in this game and new characters. But a lot of the tertiary Mario enemy casts don't get additional costumes. Dry Bones doesn't, the cow doesn't. And I feel like that would be an easy thing to add, although there are original Mario casts. Like, Waluigi has more costumes than Donkey Kong does in this game. I think Koopa...
Which is weird.
I think like Lakitu and Shy Guy have more than Bowser Jr. Maybe that could be incorrect. There are weird decisions, but I think the costumes are really fun. I think it's a really interesting way to add a collectathon aspect and longevity to this game. The main thing I've seen people complain about is how hard and luck-based it is to unlock all of the characters, like all of the Mario characters in this game, but I don't view that as a mark against the game. I actually view it as a mark for it. Because the only way to get some of the enemy characters is have someone in the race get the comic item. That's not you. I mean, it depends on if you're playing multiplayer or not. But if you're playing single player, that's not you. Use the item. They also have to be behind you in the race to do it. And then hope you get transformed into an enemy that you do not have yet.
Why can't it be you? Oh, because, yeah, you're the ones that get you, like when you use the
yeah,
item,
then you're the one that doesn't transform.
Okay, yeah.
And I like that. I don't mind having a lot of things that take a while to unlock. I mean, we're not going to... I don't know how people feel about spoilers for Mario Kart World, but when we were playing, you were going down the 7 tracks. It's like, oh, these are the 7 cups. And then when you beat the 7th cup, the 8th cup opens up, like a cloud literally opens in the sky and takes you to Rainbow Road. It feels sort of playgroundish that there are things I see on my feed that I'm still not sure if they're real or not. Like, especially with modern image editing, like, oh, is this actually a real thing? I've seen... How do you feel about spoilers for Mario Kart World?
Well, to be honest, I don't mind the whole Rainbow Road thing because they showed it off in the direct. I mean, that's like whatever.
I mean, like, beyond that. Something that you probably haven't seen quite yet.
Ooh, there's a certain mode that I think exists, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. And I've seen images and cutscenes of a potential mirror mode that flips the entire overworld map. But the things I've seen are like, oh, you have to get 3 stars in all the cups, or oh, you need to beat this cup twice. It feels very nostalgic to have a mode that you don't quite know how to unlock it, and everyone's like, oh, you gotta beat the Elite Four 8 times with this Pokemon. Like, it's really fun to do that. We're still in early days, and as I've already seen videos on my feed of like, these are the 150 locations of the question mark block pads in the game. And in the coming weeks, the game will be fully figured out. But where it is right now, I think it's fun to discover, and I think it's an easy game to just pick up and constantly be unlocking things. Granted, in Mario Kart 8, I never got all of the cart pieces. Like, I think you get those every 100 coins, and it's probably easier to get coins in Mario Kart World. But it's still early, so maybe I'll change my tune in a week's time on the next podcast episode. But it feels like there's a lot still to discover in this game, and I think it's going to keep a lot of people entertained for a long period of time. And because it's the only Switch 2 game, sort of like Nintendo Land was for Wii U, if you're the friend with a Switch 2, it's like, oh shit, come over, let's all play Mario Kart. I think there's a lot of appeal there. I think it's...
No, I mean, I'm definitely going to be the cool friend for a few weeks.
That's why I think it works as a launch title.
Yeah, and I guess and it's funny. It just... And now that I think about it, there's fewer examples of these launch titles than I realize. Because I mean, you can say that for the Switch. I mean, even though Breath of the Wild also came out on the Wii U. For the Wii U, at least regarding first party games, I'm pretty sure the only one was Nintendo Land. Maybe there was another one. I'm trying to think of it.
I think it was New Super, right?
Oh yeah, New Super Mario Bros. U, which isn't exactly a riveting launch title in my opinion.
It's a 2D Mario game.
Apparently the Toadette game, the remake, sold like hotcakes somehow. I don't know who's buying that.
Well, anyone that had a Switch that didn't have a Wii U, that's an easy slam dunk.
I guess
is
part
just
of it.
Porting Wii U games to the Switch.
Yeah, I guess when I was a kid, it just seemed that, like, at least on the internet, no one liked New Super Mario Bros.
Yeah.
Except for me. Well, I mean, I like the first one a lot. I still probably do like the first one a lot. I think that the games got a little bit samey after Wii. I don't really like 2 that much. And I don't think I really cared for. I think one big problem with it is just that the new power-ups weren't that fun. I think we had really fun power-ups with the propeller suit, the penguin suit. The DS one had fun new stuff. The Wii U one just didn't really have anything new, and the 3DS one just had the whole coins gimmick, which I never found that interesting.
I think the games individually are fine in a bubble. The era you're talking about of everyone hating it was right on the toes, I guess, because it's afterwards, of New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Mario Bros. 2 coming out a year apart from each other. So
I think they were like
seemed...
4 or 5 months, actually.
Oh, maybe.
Crazy.
So it
I have
seemed
no
like this was
idea.
going to keep happening. Aside from like... Because when you think about a series that only has one game per console, that doesn't actually seem like a lot. I think those two just accidentally lined up like that, and people got sick of it very quickly.
Yeah, because I don't remember the same kind of complaints when the Wii version came out, but
That was the first 4-player one, like the first ever 4-player 2D Mario game, and it was a big selling point because of that.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun
ironically,
with that game.
I never enjoyed the multiplayer. Well, I mean, I probably had a little bit of fun with it, but you know, it was often frustrating because your characters all collide with each other, which I think they got rid of for Wonder for this very reason.
They did, yes.
So you can just bump into your friends or like throw them off if you really want to. And even if you don't want to throw them off, you know, there's limited real estate when it comes to jumping around, especially in harder platforming challenges. So a lot of the more difficult levels in the game are just impossible to do. Or maybe not impossible, but one of the ways they balance it out is that there's like way less consequence for dying. You just turn into a little bubble, and like you just kind of get like saved by your friend. But
yeah,
I don't know. It didn't feel that good for me to play.
It made a game like that more of a party game, which is, I think, maybe what it was intended as. Because I've seen a lot of people say that the game is too easy, and whenever they talk about it, they're talking about single player, like playing the game by yourself. And not to say that the game isn't intended to be played like that, but there are some games like that, and even like that one 3D platformer Sackboy game they released for the PS5 and then later came to PC that you can play by yourself, but they're probably built for you to play with friends and have either people over or people online. And playing with people online seems to be the modern equivalent of that. But Mario Kart World will sell this console. I've seen it happen in real time. I just had my normal friends over that aren't really in tune with all the video game announcements and just play it and be like, man, I might need to get this console. It seems like the main thing for a lot of people is the price point, which is fair.
No, I mean, that's the common joke everyone's making is they're like, oh wow, Switchy, you must be pretty well off right now.
I've seen so much of that.
Switch 2.
Of people posting online with their Switch 2 and their Mario Kart. And then I've seen discourse to be like, this is like, I can't believe you're rubbing this in everyone's face. Like, this is privilege. Like, $500 is a lot, but it's not a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah, I saw that exact tweet. And I mean, maybe if you want to talk about the world stage, like that kind of money is a lot more in some parts of the world. But among Americans, having, you know, I guess it depends on what your definition of privilege is. If it basically means that anything in any way that could be seen as advantageous in your own life exists, then you're privileged, then sure. But I think that having, you know, like $500, $600 to spare is, you know, nice, but it's not particularly privileged.
It's not unattainable is the thing. Like, it's not like, oh, you can only afford this while also affording to live. If you're really
not like an
rich.
Electric car.
Yeah, if
like
you knew about this
Rolex,
console,
like what are we talking about?
I guess it's
you know
fair
I mean?
to say that they announced it in January, so it's only like 5 months to save up. But I think if you were given 5 months and you were really sold on the Switch 2, you probably could have had the money to get it. But that's to say also, like, I don't expect people to get it at launch. Like, I mean, wait. If you're thinking about a Switch 2 a little bit, but you didn't feel the need to get it at launch, then just wait a little bit. I don't think it'll go on sale at any point, but there might be more stuff on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I don't think the people who are kind of fans are like, oh yeah, you know, Mario's kind of fun. They outnumber the core Nintendo fans. Like, you and I were core Nintendo fans.
Right.
So I mean, we were probably set to buy it day one anyway. Maybe some other people not so much.
Yeah.
But like, I think right now, for a lot of people, getting a Nintendo Switch Switch 2 is a bit of a hard sell because Mario Kart's fun, but I don't know, is it really the thing you've been aching to play all this time? Maybe for some people it is. I wasn't particularly aching to play it.
Yeah.
I like Mario Kart, but not an extreme amount. So for me, it's more about just, getting a new Nintendo console because there's more fun games down the line.
I mean, I just wanted to
think for
do a
me-
proper console launch, but I have fallen in love with this Mario Kart game. And everyone loves Mario Kart. Even if you don't love Mario, people love playing it. So I don't think the other games really matter that much. By the way, responding to Twitch chat that says, if what you unlock is completely random, then I would see why people wouldn't like that. What you unlock is completely random, and I've seen this happen as well in Smash Ultimate. They're like, oh, I wish it was easier to unlock the characters. I wish you could maybe pay to have all the characters at launch. I understand that people want a full game, that they want to play online day one, but unlocking characters in a game is part of the fun for me. Like, I love doing that.
Yeah, no, same. That's one of the things, what I remember back in 2018, I made a wish list video for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And to be fair, I was a dumb teenager, but I was right about a lot of things. I know one of the things I said I really wanted was there to be more unlockable characters, because when Smash Bros. 3DS came out, there were a lot of not unlockable characters. There were only a few unlockable characters. You could get them in maybe if you do the suicide with Fox strat.
Yeah.
You can get it in get them all in 20 minutes, if not less. And then when they were announcing when they were prepping the Wii version, they said during the direct, oh, by the way, there are going to be even more characters available from launch. Or when the Wii U version comes out, and I thought that was lame. And then, when Ultimate comes around, they said that you start off with the original 8 fucking fighters.
I love
my
that.
language. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was so cool because, it makes the whole experience of playing the game. I remember when I played Brawl as a kid, we set it up, we played the first few games, and then suddenly there's a challenger approaching. And then I find out about this Ness character. You know what I mean? It's like, who the hell is this kid?
And Smash is so because the costumes. In Smash Bros, I really loved having only
They're
the
mostly
8...
cosmetic, yeah.
Yeah, only having the original 8 unlocked, because then when a 9th character gets added, everyone that's playing wants to play that 9th character and learn that character. I don't like playing as Ness or Marth, characters like that, but if I have 12...
Those were the first 2 you unlock, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I was thinking of the original 8, and I'm like, I don't like Ness, and then I was like, no, I don't... Link? Nah, I kind of like all the other ones I'm fine with. I don't like playing as those characters, or I wouldn't if given the choice between all the characters. But when I have a roster of 12, I want to figure out everyone. And I think that's the main difference between, at least for me, when it comes to Smash Bros. And fighting games, is that I have gotten good at Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Street Fighter. But when I play those games, I know how my character works. I know how to use my character to the fullest of its heights. When it comes to Smash Bros, I'm much better at that because I know how to play my character, and I know how all the other characters work. Whereas I can match up with someone in Mortal Kombat, and they're playing like Shang Tsung or whatever, and I'm like, I don't even know what their neutral jab is. Whereas Smash Bros, it teaches you to learn all these characters. In Mario Kart, you could argue that it's less important or more important because it doesn't really matter who you're racing as. I am biased because the game launched with Dry Bones and I could play him immediately. There are a lot of characters that would be fun to play, but they're all cosmetic.
Dry Bones should be unlockable, all things considered.
It's weird that you have to unlock Daisy and Bowser Jr. and Donkey Kong, but you could just play Dry Bones from the jump.
Yeah, that was a weird decision. There are a few like that. One thing I do wish this game had, and this is a thing Nintendo seems to have moved away from. I wish there were actual conditions for unlocking the characters. I mean, to be fair, it seems that when you win a cup, you get a new character. So I guess for the first cup,
and that's like
you get
the main
Donkey Kong.
antagonist of the cup.
Yeah, and that's cool, and I like that. But I don't know. I guess one thing I liked about Mario Kart Wii is how every single character had their own little challenge for you, and it made it made getting them more interesting to me. I guess the reason they don't do it as much, or what I would guess, is because sometimes the challenges were pretty damn hard, or at least they were for me as a kid. I've never, I had a save file of Mario Kart Wii as a kid. I never unlocked all the characters. I probably would be able to now, given that I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
but I never got like Baby Luigi. I remember like spending an afternoon trying to get Baby Luigi. And I think, it being a challenge, a genuine challenge to unlock characters is really fun. And
I understand that, but with
yeah.
a game like this, it seemed all the costumes and characters and carts in Mario Kart World, you will eventually unlock all of them just by playing the game. And I think that's probably more valuable, because then it just incentivizes you to, you don't have to do anything other than play the game.
Yeah, so it doesn't push anyone to do things they really hate doing, to be fair, which I think in a lot of ways is good, or at the very least, I can see why the developers see that as a good decision. God, that reminded me of something. I definitely understand why people don't like the randomness of it, because, well, I actually don't, because I as far as I remember, whenever the Kamek item's selected, you get one of the costumes, but it's not confirmed or what's the word? It's not confirmed to be something you don't have yet. And the reason I find that kind of annoying is that when we were playing together, I think we got the Kamek item like a dozen times for all the times that at least I was on stream with you, and we got like 2 new characters out of it.
Yeah.
So what this reminds me a lot of is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I remember how
I'm interested to see where this is going.
Yeah, so, well, in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you get these playable characters called Blades, and they're basically, it's kind of like a fusion of an anime character and like a Pokemon, because what they do is they're these kind of like, I don't know, I guess I'd call them mystical creatures. They're not really mystical. They kind of fit in with the world, within the world of the game. But they're kind of like, they're people that can provide the main characters of the game with new combat abilities when they team up together, I guess. And the way you unlock them is by unlocking these core crystals, which are basically just items that you get in the game, and you just roll. Most of the time, you get like a generic character, just a generic kind of bunch of stats, and then you'll normally get the characters you actually want, which are characters with like actual names and actual quests with them and actual personalities. Sometimes, and I think actually the system is a little bit more complex than just a random gotcha thing. There are a few measures taken in place, but basically what you have to do is you have to farm that shit and like just unlock them over and over again to get all the characters, to the extent, and the thing is, the characters are rare, and when the game first came out, you had to watch the whole animation for the unlock each time. After about like 3 or 4 months, they added a patch which lets you skip the animation, and they added it in kind of a clunky way. It just opens up a dialogue box. Do you want to skip the animation, you're not even able to like press plus while it's playing to skip it. But what that does is it just makes you, it's just this kind of like random thing you have to just draw over and over again. And it's mind numbing. I remember just hating it. A lot of people hated it. And I guess this isn't nearly as extreme, because at the very least when you're doing it, you're just playing the game normally, and the game's fun. You're not just kind of just like collecting gotcha shit and just gambling basically. But with that being said, I think what's really going to be annoying, at least I'm foreseeing this, is when I have all the characters except for like one. And every single time you get a new character, the chances of getting another new character get lower. Unless there is something built into the game, which there's a decent chance they will put something like that in, where they kind of, I guess, make it a little bit easier to get new characters as fewer new characters exist, if that makes sense.
That happened to Ultimate, if you remember. People thought that it was too difficult to unlock characters, so there was like an update added maybe a week after that made it easier to unlock characters, because the CPUs were like legitimately difficult to fight.
Interesting.
I remember that. It was fun.
I never had that issue because when Ultimate came out, I was very excited for the story mode. So I played the entire story mode. I got it on Friday, I think. I finished the entire story mode on Sunday. Altogether, it was like 20 hours, or maybe like 15 to 20 hours, and it was fucking mind numbing. I did not enjoy it.
I invited over a bunch of my friends from high school, and we would later form the channel, the group of the Bestest Boys. And former the Bestest Boys and channel member, my friend Chris, brought his own Switch, obviously, because it's a portable console, but then also brought his own monitor, like TV. And while we were all playing Smash Bros. Together, just fighting through the game. Oh, there's the Chris applause. Fighting through the game, he was playing through the story mode by himself because he wanted to unlock the characters as fast as possible.
He's saying that in the video, actually.
Yeah.
That's funny. Because yeah, you get them faster. I mostly did it. I actually was kind of bummed out that I didn't that I unlocked the characters that way, because I probably would have had more fun doing it the old school way. But at the same time, I wanted to see all the cutscenes, because I was hoping there would be a lot of cutscenes, but there weren't a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not. Maybe if I had like played World of Light at a less extreme pace, I probably would enjoy it, remember it a little bit better. But I just found it kind of lame and boring, and I was begging for it to be over. Like every single time, like especially towards the end, every single time I got to like a new room or whatever, I was like thinking like, please be the end of this, please be the end of this, and it wasn't always the end of it.
We have been discussing Smash Bros. When talking about Mario Kart World, and I think that's a decent comparison, or at least interesting, that when it came to Ultimate, although unlocking all those characters was a lot of fun, after like a week it got to a certain point where I was playing the game so much just because I genuinely liked the game, and whether it be spirits or characters or items or music or anything, it eventually plateaued. Like I went through that game very quickly. And then they added online tournaments and like themed online tournaments. Like, oh, you could play this character and this. And it's, you know, it's just like a fun thing to do. And it runs like the entire week or the entire weekend, and you can enter at any point. And then if you win the tournament, like if you beat all of these people online and win the tournament, which I did a couple times, it just gives you a legendary spirit. But because I had already 100% of the game and done everything, I was like gifted spirits I already had for winning the tournament. And I know that people would be against it, the idea of having something locked behind an online feature like that. But if we're looking at Mario Kart World and the amount of costumes each individual character has, I would hope that a modern Smash game would kind of take from that, because it seems like, and of course this is still early days, that you can keep playing Mario Kart World for hours, for days, and still not unlock everything. I kind of want to see a Smash game like that. And obviously you can't have that with the characters, because people are going to want the characters almost immediately. But maybe like an alternate costume for the characters that you can enroll in an online tournament and then get it. Because I always compare it to Mario Tennis Aces, which is a strange decision. But that game, they had semi-monthly online tournaments, and if you just entered the tournament, you would get a new character. Like, they would roll out a bunch of characters for free just by playing online. And if you got farther in that bracket, you would unlock alternate costumes for that character. But just, even if you lost the first round, or quit during the first round, or was in it for a frame, you would unlock that character. And I think that's a really fun way of doing it. I would like a Smash game where I could continue playing it and still not unlock everything that there is to unlock.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I can foresee myself playing Mario Kart World consistently for weeks or months, just so I can get everything. Because I think as long as I'm always getting costumes, I think it's going to be kind of fun to move through.
There was a series I was doing earlier this year on stream where I was playing through my childhood save of Super Smash Bros. Brawl and trying to get all the trophies. And it's actually a very difficult challenge. And I know there's a Melee speedrun category for getting all the trophies. And I don't know if it's because I was more dedicated.
One of those.
I don't know if I was more dedicated when I was a teenager, or if I had more time, or I was just playing it consistently. But I still have not gotten all the trophies in Melee and Brawl. And these are my childhood saves. And I got all the spirits in Ultimate in like a week or two. I don't know if that's a testament to the game. Maybe just because the way to get all the spirits is just by doing all the spirit battles. And that doesn't take a long time. It takes a long time in perspective, but it's not that difficult to do.
I forget, does Ultimate have like one of those achievement boards where you have those tasks and it kind of like unlocks an image? I forget.
Yeah, I know the challenge board. Yeah, it's shaped like comic book panels.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's what it is in Ultimate. Because I remember it had like the Brawl one, or the kind of
the Brawl board I still haven't finished, but the Ultimate one I did in maybe like a couple weeks time.
Yeah, same. I'm like 99.9% sure I finished it pretty fast. And I think the 4-1, I think I struggled a little bit with the 4-1, but I think that's a kind of changing philosophy about video games that I don't know if I really like that much. And it's hard to say that you don't like it without being called an ableist, but I guess I'll say it anyway. I think that, a lot of games are afraid of making it really tough to 100% them. Mm-hmm. There's something they kind of don't like doing about it. So I think there are way fewer real extreme challenges in video games to get everything than there used to be. in some ways that's good, because often those challenges would be like, do this very obscure thing in the game 100 times, which is stupid and ridiculous. But at the same time, I think that really pushing players is valuable. But I think nowadays, maybe not so much with every game. I think it's definitely a thing you can notice with Nintendo. I feel like the barrier to 100% video games is way lower than it used to be. And it's kind of a shame. I don't know. I mean, I guess on some level, people would say I shouldn't be bothered by that, but I guess I really miss being in a situation where I really have to chomp at the bit to complete a certain challenge in video games. That, I don't know. I think there's a value in that, and I think it's it's not the end of the world if not every player who wants to, or at the very least, it's not actually that. I shouldn't even say that, because I don't like that language. I think a lot of players can actually step up to these challenges if they wanted to, but they just rather kind of get through it a lot easier.
I don't even need it to be more difficult. Yeah. I just want them to incentivize you to continue playing the game. Like, reward you for putting hours into the game. I don't need to discover something super hidden. Just, like, give me unlocks the more I play the game. Smash Bros. Make it so, like, you get this costume after, like, 3,000 fights or whatever. Just little stuff like that. And to your point, I think when it comes to 100%ing, I don't think it's easier. I guess it depends on what games you're playing. I think there's a lot more 100-hour games nowadays than there used to be. To the point where it seems really daunting, where all of a sudden a game is launched and falls on my lap. Like, I'm trying to get through Doom, the Dark Ages, and then somebody's like, oh, have you played Expedition 33? And it's like, I don't really have the time to even get a little bit of the way into that game. Like, the Tears of the Kingdom game saved file I was playing on my Switch 2 is the same one I started in 2023. And granted, it's because I only have time on stream, but like, I still haven't beaten Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't had the time to just dedicate only to that game.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. I mean, I think I'm saying this, but there have been times, especially for games that I'm not like a huge fan of, where I'm like, okay, how do I do this side quest, or how do I do this kind of supplementary content? And then I find out, or I hear all the things I have to do, and I'm like, nah, not doing that.
When it comes to completion in games, I feel like it's often the same. I feel the same way when people say, like, oh, my attention span is so awful, it's so hard to pay attention now. And you're right, like, not to be accused of being ableist or whatever, but I think that is down to human error a little bit. Like, I'm not even talking about people with ADHD, I'm just talking about the average person who just always has their phone on them, who's, like, scrolling TikTok while at the movie theater, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to focus nowadays, am I right? It's like, well, you can choose not to, like, it's not going to be easy. It's a difficult thing to pick up, to break those nasty habits, but you can choose to live your life differently. Same thing when it comes to 100% of games or fully completing them. I see people say, like, oh, well, all the information about games is just on the internet nowadays. But you can choose not to look up walkthroughs. Like, you can make the conscious effort to specifically cut out everything else about the game and only play it when you're playing it. I try and do that my best, and it causes a lot of stream moments where I waste like an hour running in circles. But I would much prefer that as opposed to like following a checklist of all the things I'm supposed to do. Because as a kid, I used to do that all the time. Like, when I was 8 years old on YouTube, I would just be watching walkthrough. Every new game I got, I would instantly load up a walkthrough. And my first experience with the game would be following a guide.
Yeah. I mean, I find that to be, depends on the game. I think sometimes just kind of doing it with some supplemental material can be fun.
Yeah. And sometimes getting lost in a game is the fault of the game, a little bit.
Yeah. It just occurred to me that, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if you even like me bringing this up, but it just occurred to me how you really have to when you're streaming, you really can't, or you still can. I think, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. But you're probably not as hesitant. Well, it seems that you have to make a conscious decision about it. I'm rambling. Point I'm making is that if I was on a stream, and if I was streaming every single day and I was playing a hard game, I'd have a really hard time not Googling shit while I was playing the game.
Yeah.
Because, I get pushed to that limit. I've been pushed to that limit. And I imagine that it's not like something that I'm super ashamed of, but I still kind of don't want people to be watching me while I Google, like, I don't know, like Xenoblade X, how to beat this boss. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Like
think the Switch
best
2
build Xenoblade
streams
X.
are really lax because what I'm doing is just playing the games. Like, I don't really intend to beat them on those streams. The only time I've ever felt the need to look stuff up is when there's a ticking clock. So, like, I guess spring last year, I said I wanted to complete Paper Mario for the N64 before the Thousand Year Door remake came out. And I was like maybe 5 streams, maybe like 3 streams removed from the Thousand Year Door remake coming out. And I'm like, all right, I have to like have a checklist of things so I can make sure I fully complete Paper Mario before this game comes out. That's when I do it. When I'm near the tail end of the game and the clock is ticking, then I will, because I like finishing previous games.
Were you trying to beat like the Toad super boss or what?
No, I was just trying to just complete Paper Mario.
And so you didn't want to get stuck on anything, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming. Okay, yeah.
And it also happens that this game's a little bit more, not obtuse, but just like you kind of need to know where to go. Before Echoes of Wisdom came out, I'm like, oh, I want to play through Link's Awakening remake. And evidently, I expected Echoes of Wisdom to be a larger series, but then a bunch of other stuff came out. So I ended up fully completing Link's Awakening remake and then streaming Echoes of Wisdom like one time. But still, like, in the final 2 streams of that, I'm like, okay, I need to beat this game before this new game comes out so I can play the new game on release date. And that game is a lot of like, oh, you got to go to this thing and talk to this guy and so on and so forth. So I do like writing physical notes for myself in a little notebook I have and tell me where to go. I just also like holding physical hardware in my hand when it comes to notes. Like when I was doing my Fire Red run of only using Squirtle or playing through Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, the only thing I will excuse is using a physical instruction guide, like a strategy guide, because I think that's kind of fun.
When I was a kid, I got, what was I going to say? I think at least for a couple generations, my parents or my sister and I would save up for, we would always get the new strategy guide with the new Pokemon games. Yeah. But at the very least, we got it for Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, I think Black and White. Not so sure about Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It was just fun to us. I think I liked having the book Pokedex. I remember for one of my birthdays, I got the Pokemon Platinum strategy guide and it had a full like 493 Pokemon list of all the ones that were out, and I thought that was so cool. Actually, it might have not had Darkrai, Shaman, and Arceus because they were still pretending those Pokemon didn't exist yet.
Right.
But I think there's something fun about that. You know, one thing that this all just reminded me of is how a lot of retro games, they expected you to use the manual. Yes. You know what I mean? Nowadays, the manual is not a thing people do anymore, really. I think like in the Switch era, they just stopped doing manuals. I think they still did it during the Wii U era, because I think at that, like after a certain point, it just kind of became understood that the game itself, in the best case scenario, should teach you everything you need to know how to play it without you having to kind of get a little booklet for it.
People always hold up how cool the Braille puzzles are in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald for the Reggies. And I do think that is fun and cool, but how many people in the game just discovered that on their own? Like, there's no way. I mean, you either looked it up or you read it in a strategy guide.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's occurring to me, like, would I have actually... Actually, I don't think I ever actually did it because I just wasn't good enough at video games back then. Mm-hmm. This is also the consideration, is that, was I especially bad, or was I just, like, 6? Because I remember having Ruby... And I have no idea how I beat that game like the champion. I think I just got really lucky with my Blaziken, because back then I didn't train my Pokemon. I just had a Blaziken,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably why it was probably really strong.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess. But Sky Uppercut can only get you so far. I remember trying to make Diamond and Pearl work with just my Infernape, and then eventually it took me a few years. I don't think I started. Oh, what?
No, just my first starter was a Chimchar. And then I got stuck somewhere in Diamond and just didn't know what to do. And then I transferred my Infernape into Heart Gold, like towards the latter half of Johto. And then used my Infernape to beat the Johto League, beat Kanto, and then beat Red. And then I transferred my Infernape back into Diamond. Because I figured out what to do. I had to go to Cantilever City. And then I beat the Elite Four with that Infernape. I had a level 100 Infernape. And its moves were Close Combat, Flare Blitz, Ember, and Cut. That was the Infernape loadouts. And I still have that Infernape.
I don't use Flare Blitz on Infernape, at least not in like single player playthroughs, just because I don't
want to see him get hurt.
Damage.
Yeah.
Um,
They should add a
you
mechanic in
you
the next Pokemon game where if you do a recoil move, they turn back at you and look really sad.
What they will probably do is they'll have, oh, your Pokemon really braced itself so it doesn't take any recoil damage.
Ugh.
What do you think about that feature, by the way? They're like, oh, this Pokemon toughed it out so you don't get hurt.
I
What do you think
don't
about that?
mind it if it was less frequent. Like, I think it happening in, like, the heat, like, there's a huge battle and you're like, oh my god, my Pokemon's about to die, and then it comes in clutch last minute, could be a really cinematic moment for a game. I just think it
Yeah.
should be a lot more rare. I'm glad it incentivizes you to, like, use the refresh, or the Omi, or the campsite, or the curry, or the sandwich on your Pokemon, because I really like those features. And although Legends
Yeah.
Arceus is my favorite in a very long time, definitely my favorite on the Switch, I kind of wish there was a petting feature in that game.
Yeah. I mean, I still am glad that they finally they now take it very seriously to have your Pokemon follow you. That was a thing. I remember during Gen 5 to 7, I was chomping at the bit for them to bring that back because I thought that was
Yeah.
so special. You know, like it's like, oh,
And they fucked it up.
Your Groudon smells something weird and it keeps sniffing it or some shit like that. It's like, yeah, dude, like my
Yeah.
Groudon's sniffing me, bro.
I
But
love in Legends Arceus when you could just, like, bring them all out. Because that was my
oh
favorite thing in
yeah.
the anime, when they were, like, a traveling group and they were all, like, eating breakfast together.
Yeah, no, I was so butthurt I couldn't do that in the
Hmm.
older games because I just love the idea. Yeah, no, it's like I'm gonna have lunch with my Pokemon. You
It'd
know.
be fun for them to
Actually,
do
that reminds
something
me.
akin to Colosseum, except you get to choose your allies. Like, you have a team of 6, but then also you can, like, not sponsor, but, like, make friends in the game, and then you could have 2 other trainers traveling with you. I think that would be fun.
Mm. It's
Or
funny. It seems that a
they should
lot of
do
people.
GTA 5 Pokemon, where you could switch between the 3, and they all have different paths. Like, one is for the Pokemon League, one is for contest, and one is for, like, Pokemon breeding or shiny hunting or whatever. That's $1 million idea I just thought of.
I'm gonna
They,
be bro. It's kind of funny because they sorta somewhat did something similar to that idea with Scarlet and Violet with the 3 individual stories.
yeah, but you
I
gotta
mean, to
do
be
all
fair,
of them
you're
anyway.
still playing yourself. You're still playing yourself, but
Yeah.
it just kind of occurs to me that they had 3 different kind of things that you can do in any order in that game, at least theoretically. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
but
kind
they're all
of
battling. And I know that's what Pokemon
yeah,
is, but it'd be cool if there were other, like, they keep adding additional modes, like, oh, you can take
yeah,
pictures of Pokemon, or you could do the rhythm contest game. Like, I think I understand that it's a lot simpler to have the Pokemon League because it is in fact a turn-based RPG. But I've always wanted in one of the Pokemon games to have, like, a contest league. Like, you can choose which path you take and how to beat the game.
yeah. That's cool. You know, I think that's a thing that in general Game Freak has moved away from, along with probably a lot of other game developers, is that I think video games in general are more bashful these days. And this goes back to what I was saying about specific requirements for unlocking characters. I think games are a little bit more bashful these days about asking you to do like a bunch of weird different things to get everything. And what I mean
Hmm.
by that, because that's like some dog shit sentence I just said, is that, for example, think about Milotic or whatever.
Hmm.
In order to get Milotic, you used to have to do some crazy shit like max out your Feebas's beauty, which involves, I think, making a bunch of Pokeblocks and feeding your Feebas and stuff like that. I have never done it because I didn't want to, and then you can finally level it up. It evolves. I think nowadays games don't like putting players through weird side content to the same extent. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think in a lot of ways you don't see stuff like that, at least from Pokemon anymore, where they'll still have all these cute little extra game modes and stuff. They haven't stopped doing that for the most part, but they don't really make you do it. I can't think of many, like, at least in like in Oros, for example. What do they really give you for doing the contests? I don't think they really give you that much.
No.
And I guess I think a big reason for that is they probably get a good amount of criticism when they do try and do stuff like that. Because I think a lot of people, they like the core Pokemon game. They don't want to do contests. They don't want to do the spinny poffin mini games or whatever. And I think that's why nowadays you don't see it as much, because there's a good amount of people that just don't want to do anything off, like don't want to do any of the like side things, because I think it's often it's a big ask. I don't think these side games are always super thought through.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's my basic point.
I think that's an interesting point, and when it comes to these exclusive games we're looking at here, I was gonna go in the order of, I guess, how we played them, which ones we did. You played with me these first 5 of Mario Kart World, Welcome to Our Fast Fusion Survival Kids, Bravely Default Flying Fairy. But the one you didn't play, and the one I managed to play on stream, was Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. And that game, I like a lot of the wacky stuff. Like, all the best things you've seen or heard about the game, they are really, really fun. The combat sections are fun. The random, like, rhythm minigame, all the minigame stuff, like, I don't find that annoying at all. I like doing all of it. I like the video game parts of this video game. But there's, and I know I've been accused of being the guy who is reductive about video game story. And I try not to be. You know, I don't vehemently hate cutscenes. I think they have their place in gaming. But these combat sections and mini games are broken up by so many cutscenes that are fully rendered, and then images of the characters that have text and voice acting, and then trailing missions where you need to follow somebody to a different location, and you could just hold the right trigger and your character will automatically follow them. There's very little game in this game, at least so far. I fear it might be one of those games that, like, oh, after 10 hours, then you could really do whatever you want. Maybe after playing the game for 4 hours, I'm only in the prologue. Maybe.
Okay, so you've only played the... No, that sounds like what you usually get throughout the full Yakuza. I played Yakuza Kiwami, which apparently you're not supposed to play first. I intentionally played it first because it was based on Yakuza 1, but I think the Yakuza remakes, they're kind of made with you playing 0, the prequel, first in mind. So I kind of want to go back.
I don't dislike cutscenes, but I think it's fair that if the screen darkens because nobody touched the controller in a long time during your cutscene, I think that's a mark against the game. I think that's probably fair to say. Because that happened multiple times in this game.
I love to hear you. I'd love to watch you play Xenosaga. I think you'd go a little crazy. Like, I think you would like. I would see you get angry. But
probably
you probably would. I'm reminded. It's funny because I played Kiwami back in 2020, and I think it's funny because I think I was the opposite of you because I didn't really like the beat 'em up part, and that's not really because it's like not a well designed feature. I think I just didn't put enough effort in, and I insisted on playing at like a medium difficulty. So it's kind of a situation where you don't really learn how to play the game, and because of that, it's not that fun to play. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people will just half-ass shit, and then when they just don't know how to do anything properly, they kind of blame the game when it's just okay. You're not really
I think it would be better if I just hated the entire thing. But no, I was like disappointed because I loved the gameplay parts, and I didn't really have the wherewithal to get through so much story. And it's not even that like I'm anti-story. There were just a lot of cutscenes that didn't need to be that long. And here's where a little bit of speculation comes in, because I am not a diehard Yakuza fan. This launch title, this day one exclusive launch title, there's an asterisk there, because, by the way, YouTube chat earlier said, wasn't Deltarune a launch title? Deltarune launched the same day as the Switch 2 on the Switch 2, but it wasn't exclusive to the Switch 2. These are the 6 day one launch title exclusives. So Yakuza 0 Director's Cut isn't exclusive to the Switch 2. Yakuza 0 isn't. So whenever the term Director's Cut is used sparingly in video games. Normally it's like expanded, enhanced, remade, remake. Director's cut is often in reference to movies. Director's cut is never shorter than the original version. It's the director adding scenes back, usually on a DVD release, because they can be as long as they want them to. So the director's cut just has additional scenes that were cut for time or for brevity. And I think that maybe because I might need to look at Yakuza 0, just no regular version, to see if it's any different. Because this game would cut from a fully modeled, rendered CG cutscene into a dialogue section that was, like, portrayed differently. Like, the characters were moving in-engine, but there was just text at the bottom of the screen. So I think that maybe...
That's pretty normal, though. That's pretty normal.
But I think a lot of the scenes in this may have been added in the director's cut. So, that's when we're talking about these games, like, in context of remakes, we're not doing a review of Bravely Default Flying Fairy or a discussion of Yakuza 0. We're talking about the HD remaster and the director's cut. So if the director's cut makes all those story aspects way longer, I think that's kind of a detriment to the game because it really takes you out of it.
I could be wrong. My impression is that I don't think a lot of, at least what I've assumed they included in the director's cut was maybe an extra kind of side story. I
Yeah.
doubt they're really, at least what I would predict. I doubt they're embellishing the story itself. And the in-engine cutscenes, I think that's what they're usually called when it's not like clearly choreographed and animated uniquely. It's pretty common for games to have a mix of in-engine and like pre-animated cutscenes. That being said, like I would wager that at the very least, most of the main story is similarly paced between the two games. At least the director's cut and the main version. But I haven't played either, so. That's just my impression.
I suppose I just got to get over that hump because I was enjoying the gameplay aspects of the game.
And to be fair, like what you're describing, like sounds pretty much the same as the pace of other Yakuza games, or at least of Kiwami, and I assume it's kind of the same. Where there's a lot of story content.
Yeah.
And then there's the silly mini games, the silly side quests.
I think people misappropriate what I'm saying to be like, I don't think games should have story, and that's not the case because I think there is good storytelling in playing the game.
Yeah.
Like there was the bit I got to is when it's sort of like that episode of that Kill Bill parody in SpongeBob. Was fighting the way up the tower to like fight different people. I was fighting a bunch of goons and thugs getting up the tower, and then I had to do all of that to get to the top to fight the main guy. And that does way more for establishing that main guy than any like dialogue sequence could. At least to me.
Good point. Yeah, no, I mean you have a point there because that does lean into the unique storytelling that comes with video games.
Yeah.
I think you can hype things up in different ways. And you can kind of save yourself some exposition if you frame things the right way within the gameplay.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what you're talking about, where there's, especially when they do both, it just kind of can be a little too awkward.
I'm not against cutscenes or even story sections. I just think it should be proportionate. I don't think you should have more cutscenes than gameplay in your game.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about the remakes... No, go ahead.
No, I see why you say that. I'm probably a little bit more bullish on it, on cutscenes, just because there are a lot of games that I've played that I really like that are honestly more cutscene and dialogue than game. And frankly, there's a good amount of games I like that I don't even really like the gameplay that much, but I definitely like the story content. I think the big example for me is probably Xenosaga, as I said earlier, because that game is like half and half. And frankly, I didn't really care for the dungeon crawling that much.
Right, but that's an RPG, right? Or a JRPG?
Yeah, it is.
Do you have dialogue selections in that game?
What do you mean dialogue selections?
Like you get to pick what your character says?
No, it's just a story. Yeah, I mean maybe occasionally you can like say yes or no to NPCs, but no, it's just a it's like a typical JRPG. Not typical. I mean it's a cool game, but so I didn't care much for the turn-based
more of my feelings on maybe the director's cut than Yakuza 0. But when it comes to Bravely Default Flying Fairy, we didn't play that much of it. I imagine you haven't played Bravely Default Flying Fairy before the HD remaster.
No, I didn't. And frankly, I was enjoying myself. I was having a lot of fun. Like, I'm already kind of fantasizing about getting all the classes and stuff. And I was going to ask you if we can see if I can use your virtual game card to play.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So then let's test. Let's give.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know what more you feel about it. Because, like, I think I want to have a rotating Switch stream day where I just, like, don't have one game. I just play whatever I have on the Switch too and try and dedicate a decent amount of time to all of them. But it wasn't... I think it is sort of akin to Yakuza that, like, we had to kind of get over the hump to really get into the meat of the game. But yeah, I'm interested to see your thoughts on it because I guess we technically have nothing to compare it to. I don't know what the HD remaster
Other Final Fantasy games for the most part. Like,
I have to assume because the subtitles are HD and remaster that it's mainly just cosmetic changes.
That's what I assume. I assume they're moving a lot of things from the lower screen to the upper screen. At least from what I remember from 3DS footage, the gameplay system looks pretty similar. It definitely looks like a game that's upscaled from the 3DS. I mean, it's not like it looks good, but it definitely looks like it's just kind of like the 3D models were built for the 3DS, and if they aren't the same 3D models, they're kind of built off of stuff that was made for less powerful hardware on smaller screens, if that makes sense.
I don't mind that. I kind of prefer
I love that. I love that. In
overworld ways, designs as opposed to like just full anime models.
It's funny you bring that up because I was talking about this with someone today about the Persona 4 remake, which we'll talk about later in the stream, hopefully. And I was kind of saying, like, I think I'd prefer to just play Persona 4 Golden with its old PS2 visuals or upscale PS2 visuals. And that opens up a whole conversation, but I kind of like when remakes to games, they'll include quality of life stuff, they'll include stuff that makes the game especially more palatable by modern standards, but they still try and incorporate the old art direction as best they can as opposed to a complete overhaul. I like that a little bit more personally, although that's definitely a bit of a hot take, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about Flying Fairy, all things considered.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, maybe you should play more of it and like report back how you're feeling about the remake.
I was having fun with it when we were playing it together. I was
yeah.
And one thing I'll say is that I
Mm-hmm.
think that it was. I think one thing I'll also say is that I like these games, these RPG games. I think it's a big 3DS thing too, or maybe I'm just kind of that's the era that I remember really well. Like these are RPGs that respect your time in a certain way.
Yeah.
Where they're not as I think during the aughts especially, a lot of RPGs were a lot more tedious, but we were like making jokes about how fast the character runs in Flying Fairy, and I was so happy about that. It's like, okay, cool, at the very least getting around isn't going to be a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah. And I did like the way it built up to those initial bosses. It was fun to fight those too.
Yeah.
Because everything else seems kind of easy, but I'm sure that like the game will get more difficult as you play through.
Yeah.
But on this board, we have 2 Nintendo-made launch title exclusives, 2 remakes that are launch title exclusives, and we have 2 original games, third-party games. And those are Fast Fusion and Survival Kids. But if we're already on the bottom row, let's cover Survival Kids, because this has been, not just for us, but maybe mostly for us, kind of the meme game throughout the year. In the initial Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, it's the one that froze the screen in the American stream of it. So everyone was looking at that one image for minutes on end, trying to discern what game was being announced, when it was just like these kind of iPhone-esque model looking kids running across a beach. And then I looked at the prices and bought all of them, and I think Survival Kids was like $50 or something, if I remember correctly.
Really? Dude, that's nuts.
Was it 50 or 40?
That is highway robbery.
It was definitely bigger than like I expected it to be.
Highway robbery.
Right, yeah. And then we played it, and while we were playing it, I was also looking up stuff on my phone, and I found out that not only is this like, not iconic, but a pretty deeply entrenched in Nintendo Konami series. Like it was on the DS, the Wii, the Game Boy Advance. Like this has been a series that's been supported on Nintendo consoles for a while, and I guess the last game was on the Wii. I thought it was just this, and then we found out that Game Boy game was like added to Game Boy Online. I'm like, oh, I guess it's a remake of the Game Boy game. But no, this is like a series. And it's way more linear than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like, oh, a game you play with your friends, and it's like Ark Survival or Terraria. Like, you just land on an island, and then you got to survive. But no, there's like levels to it. Not from a metaphorical sense. They're just literal levels in the game. Like, literal
levels, yeah.
Yeah. And we had fun playing it together. I can't imagine what it would be like playing by yourself, because at a certain point, they kind of became... There were puzzles that required the both of us, and I think it would have been annoying to switch between the 2 objects.
Is that oh yeah, no, honestly, it's probably a game made for co-op. It looks ugly. I will say, though, I like the British guy, and I had more fun with it than I was expecting. I was like, are we really gonna fucking...
Yeah, I really thought... I thought it would be a chore, like, oh, we gotta force ourselves to, like, brave through this for, like, 3 hours or whatever, but I was... at a certain point, I was like, oh, maybe we could beat this. Like, I was convinced that the game wasn't that long, and I don't think it is that long. Maybe, like, one more stream of it, and I would have been done. But I think we were having fun playing it. It's just, I don't know if anyone else played this game.
It was to the extent that I kind of wanted to get the collectible items, because I think after there were these, like, you know, hidden relics or whatever throughout the levels.
Relic Stone.
Yeah, and I found one in one level, but I didn't know where to take it. So the British guy was like, oh, you should like explore more because you didn't find them. And I was like, what the fuck? I did find them. So I was kind of invested in finding them after that. You know, it's like a cute kind of simple problem solving game. I mean, we had the joke where I kept comparing it to Metroid.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Very deep in its kind of lock and key mechanism gameplay style. But I mean, it is... On some level, it's kind of embarrassing being there amongst all these other games.
Yeah.
Though, all to be fair, whenever you list launch titles, there's always these kind of goofy-ass games, so it's not actually that weird.
It looked like an iPhone game.
It looks like that, yeah.
It also looks like it could probably just be played on the Switch one. There's really no reason it had to be a
It looks like it looks like it could be like if it weren't for a few lighting effects that are really easy to implement, it would look like a Wii game.
Yeah. I don't know how long they've been sitting
So-
on this one, this big series to come back to, but there's really no reason they had to wait for the Switch 2 to release Survival Kids. Or maybe they just happen to have a June release date and they're like, yeah, fuck it, put it on the Switch.
Assume it's something like that, because I think honestly, if they maybe this is a little harsh, maybe there are a lot of Survival Kids fans out there, but this seems like a game they were like, okay, well, I mean, if we wanna sell this, I mean, we might as well kind of latch on to something else.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's what's fun about a console launch is you end up playing games that you otherwise would not have played at all. Would not have given Survival Kids the time of day at all. And speaking of games that I was surprised by how much I liked, I guess that would bring us to Fast Fusion as well. I got a lot of mileage out of this game, no pun intended, but like we played it for a little bit and then other guests came over and I'm like, oh, we should play Fast Fusion. And there was a time where I liked how it controlled more than Mario Kart, but then I played more Mario Kart. I'm like, I like this way more. I think Fast Fusion reminds me of a lot of other games I like and a lot of other universes I like. You know, it's got Star Wars, F-Zero, all that. It's kind of unfortunate that Switch 2 launches with the GameCube Online and also F-Zero GX, that I think they could have easily partnered with them to just make like an F-Zero game. Maybe, but this is another series that is tied with Nintendo because I think the first game was on the Wii U, and I remember people back in the day being like, "This is basically modern day F-Zero," because that's the closest we were gonna get.
It was that same series. Like when we were playing it at first, I thought about seeing some YouTubers say that back in 2012. It's like, oh, this game's a lot like F-Zero. You know, it's fast. It's kind of like if you like F-Zero, you might like these games too, or whatever.
And then the previous Fast game was I believe a Switch 1, maybe not launch title, but like launched early in it. So it is kind of tied to the modern era of Nintendo. It's a shame. I think they did show it in the Direct, but they didn't give it a lot of pomp and circumstance. I like this game way more than I thought I was going to. It feels like an arcade racer compared to Mario Kart World's more kart, like home console kart racing game. Although we didn't even talk about the Switch camera at all, but that was a really fun part of Mario Kart World as well. We were just doing bits with it, and that's a very arcade aspect of it. And I'm excited to see how people react to Jamboree TV, because that uses a lot of the peripherals. But I loved Fast Fusion way more than I thought I was going to. And as I was like getting good at it and getting good playing it, I wanted to continue playing it. It is, again, unfortunate that it is the same day as Mario Kart World and the same day that we could play F-Zero GX on the GameCube. There's going to be a lot of racing games this year, and of course we'll talk about it later in this pod. But yeah, I liked Fast Fusion. I was surprised by how much I liked it.
I thought it was okay. I didn't really like blow me away. I think it's just, you know, I mean, it was pretty. The gameplay was pretty fun. It's pretty cute. I guess just for me, it doesn't really have like a certain like that much character to it. I made the joke. I think I might have made the joke on stream that in some ways it feels like a game that you'd see characters play on a TV show.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because you don't see any people in the game. It's just these cars and or these kind of like spaceships. You know, there's that, at least for me, like it didn't like wow me, but it was more fun than I expected.
I just think for all the games that weren't Nintendo games, I had pretty low expectations. So both Survival Kids and this, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually having fun. But I'm glad.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, I definitely didn't dislike it. One thing I did find a little annoying, and I guess, you know, in some ways this could be a good thing. The laps are really long.
Yeah.
To the point where, I don't know, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but like each race is like 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
Which isn't that bad, but I think I would prefer if the courses were a little bit shorter. Especially because I don't think they're that visually stunning.
Yeah.
I think they just kind of.
I think that's just because there's not a lot of them, like not a lot of races.
Yeah.
I did have fun playing it like over the weekend with a lot of people, but I do also think I saw everything the game has to offer. There's still a lot in Mario Kart World that's keeping me back. I had fun that weekend with Fast Fusion, but I don't know if I would like go back to play it as much as I would go back to play Mario Kart World.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think to be honest, you know, I think there are probably so many cute little details in the world of Mario Kart World that, well, neither of us have seen, but anyone has seen. You know, I think, you know, these games, there's so much love and care. Mario Kart World, there's so much love and care put into its environment that I think that, you know, you can explore it for years and you could have a good time with it. And I mean, to be honest, like, I don't think games like Fast Fusion are really aiming for that, or they really even have the resources for that, to be honest, you know. It's not a super high budget game. It's just kind of like a fun little racing game. So I don't know.
And then how did you feel about
Feel like
Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour?
I liked it, but I think it's insane to try and sell this shit. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
I didn't get far enough in it, but I also think that like we got to the point where like, oh, you use the Switch and you use the Joy-Cons. I know there were other worlds in that game that were the grip, which did come with the console, but like the camera, the Pro Controller, all that.
I
But I
assume
think you
those
need to,
worlds.
yeah, I think you need
Oh,
to
sorry.
buy those peripherals to play them in the game. Maybe.
Yeah, I assume also those worlds have fewer little like bells and whistles.
Yeah.
My guess is that the Joy Cons and the screen probably have the most content. I could be wrong though. I just think like what are you gonna do with the grip?
Yeah.
Like uniquely from the Joy Cons.
I'm just saying with the camera and controller, like those don't come packed in with the console. And I think that's another thing that there's a lot of peripherals that you have to buy separately, which is a little ridiculous and redundant with an expensive console. But Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour is not just $10. It's also like if you want to see everything in it, you got to get peripherals.
Yeah, actually, it's fun that it's good that you mentioned that because I was about to say, oh, they should have just done like a pack-in thing where they not maybe if they don't do a console pack-in, they should have done like you buy it with the Pro Controller, but the Pro Controller's $90, so it's not like a thing that you can really buy that easily as a bonus, especially for a game that by all measures should be free. Like this should have just been free, but then again, like I don't know, like
I don't know how I would measure worth exactly, but I think the console will be maybe it doesn't make a difference. Maybe the price is the price, but I think it would have been better received if the console itself came with a lot more, came with one Pro Controller, came with the camera, and maybe came with Welcome Tour.
Yeah, well, I'm actually searching it up right now because there's a comparison I'm trying to make. But I'm looking about the prices of games that came out.
Right. Great. And Welcome Tour is the
years
cheapest
ago. Okay.
on this list.
Okay.
But...
Here's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
Oh, actually, I forgot that We Play Motion existed. Okay, do you remember the game We Play?
Yes. Was that the party one?
It was a bunch of like small little mini games that use motion controls.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I remember getting it on Christmas morning. They sold it it sold really well despite the fact that people don't really talk about it that much, in large part because they sold it for $50, but it came with a free Wii remote. And the thing is, at that point, Wii remotes cost $40. So basically, you're getting a Wii remote plus a $10 game, in a little package. And I think that's a good deal. And frankly, I think that if anything, Welcome Tour should have something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a really weird idea to try and sell it as a separate game because it's like a tech demo.
Because there are a lot of mini games in it that sell people on ideas. Like when I had my friends and roommates over that didn't really know a whole lot about the Switch 2 or like what it had, I would just load up the mouse games for them and they'd be like, oh, this is really cool, these mouse controls are cool, but it is in the additional game. And I also think on top of that, like I think the mini games are fun. I think something more akin to Astro's Playroom or maybe Nintendo Land would have been better. This is just aesthetically so uninteresting. Like, there's nothing that really screams Nintendo about it. It feels more like an Apple commercial.
Welcome Tour?
Yeah.
Interesting, because I feel like I would actually disagree.
I'm talking about the non-minigame parts, like the overworld.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess I'm just seeing it as a whole. You know, these quirky little games with the with like these little mini games. I mean, it feels pretty within that kind of Nintendo non-affiliated to any franchise game pastiche, if that makes sense. Like your Wii Plays, your Nintendo Lands.
Yeah, maybe I would like this honestly, game more if it had like Mii's. I don't know if that would have made a difference.
You see that WarioWare thing too. You know, it's just like it feels like. I don't know how to describe it, but it's that kind of Nintendo menu aesthetic that I think it fits in decently with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'll say it. I enjoyed our time with it. I think that it's an unfortunately priced game. I think it's really not a game that I think should be sold, as I said. But, you know, I think I find a lot of interest in how things are made. And a lot of the kind of elements they brought up about, you know, how the Switch was designed, you know, what they were kind of going for, the decisions they made. I mean, I talk a lot about, I'm kind of an audio nerd, kind of an audio weekend warrior. I'm not going to say that I'm like good at this stuff, But I remember they were talking about how they adjust the frequency response of the speakers, or they kind of EQ the audio that comes out of them to better adjust for to have it more accurate for based on the speakers or whatever. And I thought that was interesting. I kind of liked learning about having them talk about, you know, the way it was designed. I would probably love doing everything in that game, but I think it's ridiculous to sell it, you know?
Yeah.
Because on some level, it still feels like a commercial. It's a fun commercial, but...
Well, it's also just good to have a tech demo game packed in so that anyone who wants to play the console could be like, oh, these are how the mouse controls work, or HDR, or the sound of it. And it's cool to have that camera game as well. I haven't gotten to the camera aspect. I really just played as much as I could on the first day and then moved on to other things because there's a lot of games I wanted to cover. But it's a good way of pitching it to people. I think it's going to be like a game that you walk into Walmart and it's the one playing on the screen. But I don't know if it's necessarily fun beyond that.
I like the mini games, but it's not like I don't think I'm going to be compelled to, you know, pop it out.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I'll say is that, what was I going to say? You know, it reminds me of Nintendo Land, because I remember when Nintendo Land came out, when it was, I mean, I got my Wii U as a kid, and, you know, when I played Mario U, I didn't feel the magic. Like, I wasn't that, you know, impressed, or, you know, I talked about it earlier in the stream. But I had so much fun playing Nintendo Land. I loved bringing it to people's houses and stuff.
Right. Well, that's a game that you can play with friends. Like, not only did it use the gimmick of the Wii U well, but also it's a party game. Whereas I think, honestly, Welcome Tour is a game that's kind of meant to be played in handheld. Because we had to remove it from the dock a lot while playing it.
Yeah, because especially because not all TVs have like 120 FPS and stuff. There's a lot of things that can't rely on your TV to have. Also, there's a touch screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's a big part of it. But I guess I'm reminded of, you know, I do like the existence of these games that kind of highlight and accentuate the little thing, the kind of new possibilities with the new consoles. I guess Switch had it too with 1-2 Switch. Although I'd say I think I like this game's presentation more than 1-2 Switch. Marginally. I mean, it's not like a big thing. But I think, you know, when these games are done right, they can be really special. And you know, some of my best memories with the Wii U are playing Nintendo Land. And this game, like, kind of sells me on things I thought I wouldn't be sold on in a way that the Nintendo Land did.
Yeah,
because
maybe my thing is that I just don't, like, care. Well, I mean, not that I don't care, but, like, the mouse controls don't really grab me as much as they're being sold as, like, a main feature. And this, and then the upcoming, like, Drag X Drive, I'm not super excited about. And when it comes to Metro Prime 4, I'm going to get the Switch 2 edition, but I'm going to play it with a controller. Like, I've played on PC before. I play on PC a lot, but I always plug a controller in. Like, mouse controls aren't a huge deal to me. And it seems like a lot of maybe it was just early days, but a decent amount of the games we played that weren't just looking at the screen on the Switch 2 were mouse-based games. And it's not a feature I'm particularly excited about. Not that I dislike it, because I prefer having it over not having it. And it is cool to, like, show people, but it's not something that means anything to me particularly.
Yeah. Not that excited about mouse controls. I don't think it's really going to do much for me that's going to, you know... Like, real, I mean, actually, I don't think I've really even used the Joy-Cons on my Switch yet. I mean, I just use my Pro controller, to be honest.
I think we probably both have the same. If we're looking at these 6 games, the same best game of these 6, it's going to be Mario Kart World. But I'm interested in what your second best or second favorite of the ones here is to you, because I think we're probably gonna have different answers.
I haven't played Yakuza. Yakuza 0. I wasn't there.
Right.
I probably would pick Bravely Default.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we both had a decent amount of fun with Survival Kids, but it's not, like, better than anything here, and Welcome Tour is its own thing. My pick would be Fast Fusion, I think, of these, because I just had the most fun with that, behind Mario Kart World, of course. And maybe I didn't get far enough in Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. Maybe if I, like, stuck it out, I think at a certain point that will surpass Fast Fusion, but for me, that's the second game that I don't know if we're recommending these. I don't know if these are like, oh, this is the buying guide for the Switch 2. Ultimately, if you're getting a Switch 2, you should just play Mario Kart and then do whatever Switch games you had. But I like Fast Fusion as well.
Yeah. I mean, my second best would probably be, Mario Kart World, then Bravely Default. Then I'd probably say Welcome Tour, but if I played Yakuza 0, I'd probably say Yakuza 0.
I guess, like, they're different contexts and remakes, but I think we're weighing the games individually. But that is... a large segment of this podcast, and we talked about, well, I guess we didn't talk about the midnight release, but if you want to watch me and my co-parent here, one, stream the Nintendo Switch 2 for a long period of time, and two, attend the midnight release. Those are, of course, on the, well, there's an edited version on the bonus channel, but then also all those VODs exist on the BH Ultra Turbo YouTube channel, so you can watch that entire experience. But it seems like more or less we've covered everything there is to on the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we get into supposedly E3 2025, like the stuff announced the week of the Switch 2, do you think Nintendo's presence in this week is the Switch 2 releasing? Or do you think that we're going to get more information in the month? Like, do you think Nintendo is going to announce, maybe have a direct in June?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think the most important thing to mention is that I just kind of assumed we weren't getting anything else this month. Or at least it didn't occur to me that we're going to have that there's a possibility of there being a direct anytime this week.
Mm-hmm.
At least until now, when you brought that up. Because I guess, Nintendo usually does this kind of stuff on Thursdays. This is the time of year that, video game companies usually show stuff off. It doesn't seem beyond the pale for Nintendo to do something this month at the very least, if not this very week. I mean, because they usually only announce things a day in advance. And they don't really do a lot of extra fanfare for their summer directs anymore, since E3 is not a thing. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be super surprised if literally on Wednesday they're like, "Oh guys, direct tomorrow."
Yeah, granted there has been a June direct like every year since E3 shut down, and even prior to that, like obviously every June has had a direct since Nintendo Direct started because of E3.
And it's also worth noting that, I mean, I think a lot of people theorize that something about this console's launch was not really what was planned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why there's a lot of weird little curiosities, how we still have games coming out for the Switch for the next year or so, and how I forgot exactly what we had like a Switch Direct. And then a week later, we had a Switch 2 Direct, right? Something like that.
And the Switch 2 Direct was announced at the Switch presentation, like months in advance. And the Switch 1 Direct was like a couple days before, like, oh, we're also doing one of these.
Yeah. So actually, now that you say that, I think it could totally happen, because, I mean, normally I would say that, oh, no, these things are too close together. But honestly, that doesn't seem to have been, a big limiting factor, at least so far this year. So.
But do you think June was always the projected launch of the console?
I don't know. I mean, I think with the leak and stuff, I think I've heard people, but I forget exactly why they said that potentially they thought the console was meant to come out earlier or later or something like that.
We talked about it on a previous pod that there was an Arc System Works like data leak where they had a game that was going to be, it was in the files or the code or whatever as a Switch 2 game, but then also coming out in like March or something. So there was, but also like that game could have been in development in like 2023 or 4 or something. So maybe they just projected that.
Oh, I forgot about that Yacht Club Games thing that's coming out.
Well, we're not at it. I'm just making sure all these are ready. Because Chrome's got all these tabs, and if I don't click on them a little bit before I open them, it's going to take forever for them to run. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to there being more announcements, even if it's just like, oh, we're releasing more costumes for Mario Kart World. I've seen some people say that maybe it's just going to be a Donkey Kong Direct, because that seems to be the game we know the least about, or rather that we know the most about that we haven't been told about yet.
Yeah. There's also, I think that there's a lot of release dates we don't have any information on yet, although they could very easily just do that through a tweet. In fact, they did that recently with Legend ZA, where they announced that I'm pretty sure the Switch 2 version is going to be $70 and the Switch 1 version is going to be $60. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that, by the way?
I mean, that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that means that every Switch 2 game is going to be $70, maybe every, like, Nintendo-made Switch 2 game. I feel better about paying $10 extra for a Switch 2 edition, like a markedly better version of the game, as opposed to paying $70 just for, like, Tears of the Kingdom. Not that Tears of the Kingdom isn't worth $70 or even, like, a bad game, but it does feel like when there's an alternative, like, oh, this game is $60, but if you get it on the Switch 2 with the Switch 2 edition, it's $70. That at least feels like you are tangibly getting something that's maybe worth $10 more.
Yeah, I guess so. I was kind of mad about it because I'm not really expecting it to be considerably better on the Switch 2. Mm-hmm. Maybe they are going to do a little, maybe they are going to put a little bit extra effort. I assumed it was just going to be like the same game, but it just runs better or something like that. Because it's not like ZA is really breaking any new grounds with how it looks.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure once the game's in my hand and I'm closer to the day. Also, wait, they did announce a Pokemon Direct for July, right?
Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that because there's so much other things going on. So they could just cover ZA in that. There's not a lot in ZA that's fully has my attention yet. Maybe just because there's so many other games coming out this year, and I believe that whatever we get next year is going to be a lot bigger. Like, that's going to be Gen 10. It's going to be the anniversary of Pokemon. I'm way more excited for year 2 of the Nintendo Switch 2 than year 1. I'm just happy to have it in my hands, and I'm content to just play Mario Kart nonstop. I think DK is also going to be up there, but for the most part, like, what we're getting, I'm okay with, because it is, in fact, the first year of the console.
What do you think is going to be the big game for next year, if there is anything you can think of?
Like, not... Because Pokemon is sort of independent of... Not that it's independent of Nintendo, but, like, other than
Pokemon, if there is anything.
Yeah, I think the Pokemon game's going to be big, and maybe they don't want to release a game at the same time, because that'll likely be October or holiday, but I don't think it's impossible that there's... I don't want to get my hopes up for Smash, but that's normally a year or so into a console's launch. Granted, we know that the game that Sakurai has been working on since 2022 is Kirby Air Riders. And that's a game we also don't know a whole lot about, and that comes out later this year. The reason I'm holding out for a Direct is because we don't have release dates for Metroid Prime 4 or Kirby Air Riders. We don't even have a release date for Drag X Drive. We just know that it's summer 2025. And I wouldn't be opposed to someone who's not Sakurai making a Smash game. I think whatever it is next could surprise us. I
can see that happening at this point. I think that, like, especially if he's... Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure he was literally just offered to make any game he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if there's any way to convince him to kind of, relinquish some control over the series, I feel like that'd be a pretty good way of doing it.
Yeah, keep him on to have him do whatever he wants. And I imagine he'd feel a lot better fulfilled if there was a Smash game going on, if he was still working on something for them.
Yeah.
But also, like, on top of, we assume the Sakurai game, like, the one that's been in development since 2022. I think that is Kirby Air Riders, but also there's been 7 years, I think 7 years, the longest gap between Smash games. So there was a lot of time to be doing something. But if there isn't one next year, that'll be fine. Like, I won't be too upset about it. But I am sort of expecting it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have now, that is all the Nintendo parts covered. But if we are games journalists on the floor, on the street, ready to go in, I do kind of hope... I know that Summer Games Fest is the spiritual successor to E3. And I don't think there's ever going to be something like E3. Like, there will be a giant demo where you can play a lot of games. But now that most companies know they could just do their own broadcast, like, even before the Summer Games Fest happened on the 5th, on the 4th, PlayStation held their State of Play. And having looked at everything, the Summer Games Fest, the Xbox presentation, and the PlayStation State of Play, as someone who mainly plays PC and, like, has played Xbox Series way more than PlayStation, like, I use my Xbox as my third-party machine, and my PC, like, I use my PS5 to play games that are exclusive to PS5, which is only like Astro Bot, really. I think the State of Play has had the best announcements of this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you watched all of the large announcements like I did, but I combed through everything, and there were so many games. So even this, what we're looking at right now, is a lot of tabs. But also, I'm gonna move the screen over a little bit because now it's in, or maybe I could just do default view. Yeah, default view is fine. I'll just switch those back.
I'm embarrassingly
sorry. No, go ahead.
I'm embarrassingly foggy on which was which, but I'm pretty sure I remember, like, watching reading the PS1 news. And I mean, not PS1, the PlayStation Showcase news, and being kind of like, and then I listened to the Xbox One. And I was like, okay, wait, no, this is kind of lit. So I'm pretty sure I thought the Xbox One was a lot more kind of interesting.
I think there were just more games in this that I either had something to say about or were more excited for. So this first game, because I've charted off different games depending on whether these aren't games that I'm like, oh, I'm going to play all these or I'm excited for all these. These are just things that I have anything to say about any of them. And I try to be excited for new games, for a new series, for new IP, because I like new things and I like new creators and all of that. But it seems like a lot of announcements that I have here, I'm like, oh, this is a franchise game. This is either a movie franchise or a game franchise or this company. And that's why we could talk about it to be like, oh, it's based on this other thing. But this game has it seems to have, all of this is a cutscene, a very cheeky sense of humor. This is Romeo as a dead man. And the only reason, this is the first thing they showed off on the State of Play, I believe, or other than like that Tetris style game, I think, and the reason that is I'm gonna wait for it to show up because I like how it looks, I like how it sounds, like from an aesthetic standpoint, just from a vibe standpoint. I suppose I don't know if it's necessarily something like, oh, I will play this game, because that's something I realize as I watch through E3 or even like directs. Like I'm always like, oh, maybe I'll check that out, and then it's only like maybe 3 games I end up seeing. This is I don't know what you would call this genre. Would you call this a 3D beat 'em up or just an action game?
Looks like a 3D shooter.
Yeah, where your character has an array of like ridiculous weapons, and
So kind of like Dead Rising, I guess, in a certain way. Just to kind of.
this is, I don't know when the logo shows up, but this is a Suda51 game, and that is the oh my gosh, I keep wanting to say Travis because I keep picturing the Smash Bros. Travis
No More
text in
Heroes?
my head. Yeah, the No More Heroes series. Yes.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because it looks a lot like it. And No More Heroes is a series that I have never actually played, but because just being a Smash Bros. Fan and a Nintendo fan, it's sort of like adjacent viewing. Like I've always been aware of it. Yeah, there's a lot of different game modes going on. And the reason I picture Travis is because of that bit where they announced Travis as a Mii fighter, and then HBox just thinks it's Travis Scott initially. Do you have any experience with Suda51 or No More Heroes?
I've never played No More Heroes. I mean, I've heard I've heard people talk about it a lot. It was a big kind of game that had a lot of fans. In like circles I was in as a kid. Among YouTubers I liked. Actually, I'm finding out for the first time. Well, actually, I kind of knew this, but I kind of didn't. I didn't realize Goichi Suda was one of the guys that worked on Killer 7. But I think I actually also did. I think I've heard people say that Suda51 made No More Heroes, and heard people say Suda51 made Killer 7. But I kind of never like heard them like at the same time enough that I realized that that's the same company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I've heard. It's like. So I never really kind of made the connection, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. But I love Killer 7. That's an awesome game. That's the only Suda game that I've played, though. I've wanted to play No More Heroes.
They gave a release date for this. I think this is just because we do see like a flash of a lot of gameplay at the end, like a lot of No More Heroes-esque mini games. It does just seem like it's a non-Nintendo No More Heroes, because the No More Heroes games were like console exclusives, right? I know the first one is very built around the Wiimote. So I think it just felt, there's going to be a lot of that. That's a common theme here of companies that felt kind of restricted in Nintendo, or maybe they're in a contract deal that just end up making the same game for a different company. And that even happens between like PlayStation and Xbox. Like they really want to make more of that game, but I don't know what the deal is with that. Like if Nintendo doesn't commission more, or maybe they just wanted to like branch out and do something else and not have the one series. Because while this does have a similar vibe to No More Heroes, it definitely has a different art style.
Yeah, I think they actually made a No More Heroes game recently. Let me double check.
I know the third one was like a Switch game, but that was even like a while ago.
Yeah.
So what is Killer 7? Because I don't know if I've heard of that.
Killer 7, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a weird kind of, I guess you'd call it an on-rails shooter. Came out in the 2000s. It has a weird, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, you play as like an assassin, I think. And you kind of like go after and kill people, but you're not actually killing people most of the time. You're killing these weird ghost creatures. It's really hard to describe this game without sounding like a crazy person. But it's really fun.
The best kind of games.
It's really artistically interesting. Yeah, it's very much in that kind of just like very weird and quirky game thing. But it's also
this is reminding me more of Dead Rising, specifically because he's just in a mall shooting people with ridiculous guns.
That's why I thought Dead Rising.
There's gonna be a lot of that. Other than the
really
games,
art direction.
Other than the games, I'm like definitely excited for, and I can easily talk about why. A lot of these are just like, oh, this reminds me of other game, which is also actually it's in the Xbox One. So that's what we have to say about Romeo is a Dead Man. Do you have anything else to say about this game?
No, not really.
I don't think we have a solid release date. Honestly, a lot of games they announced are 2026 releases, which I appreciate because I don't want to buy less games because I just got a console and I want to enjoy what we have right now. I don't mind a lot of announcements being like, oh, this is coming out 2026. Although that is also sort of a stacked year for games. I think I've narrowed it down to, and this is already a lot of tabs, but the thing about an E3 or a Direct, especially the Summer Game Fest that's like 3 hours long, is you see so many games, and you know realistically that you can't play all of them, or at least to their fullest extent. So you really, not to be cruel, but you really need to have like a fine-tooth comb and be like, okay, yeah, this looks cool maybe, but I need to prioritize games I genuinely love and want to play.
Does it ever make you kind of depressed, thinking about like, oh, I can't play all of these? Sounds it kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's more, I'm fortunate to be able to have an opportunity to play games on stream. I want to try and use Game Pass more because that's the main thing I felt about the Xbox presentation is although there were a lot of games that I was like, kind of okay about, they all were under the guise of them all being on Game Pass. So I don't even need to buy those games. And I'm paying for Game Pass, so I should utilize it way more because there's a ton of games on there. And like PS5 has... I think PS5 is probably the most powerful and has its own individual experiences, and of course Switch 2 is doing its own thing. It's a Nintendo console, where there's really no reason to buy the Xbox other than Game Pass. But even then, like, you can use Game Pass on the PC. But we'll talk more about Xbox when we get into the Xbox presentation. The second thing I thought worth talking about on the PlayStation State of Play was another game that I really don't feel that strongly about, but is part of a larger series, is Silent Hill F. And I kind of feel the same way, and I don't think it's really fair to say, like, oh, I wish it looked worse, or I wish we could go back, because it might just be nostalgia blindness. It's the same way I feel about, like, digital art anime. Like, I'm not a huge anime fan, so don't let me speak with authority on this, but whenever I see, like, an anime aesthetic or an anime show or whatever, I'd much rather watch one from the 90s, because it looks a lot more hand-drawn, and I know that that's not an artistic style. That's more of a convenience thing. And I don't want people to work themselves to the bone. But sometimes something that is in the past and looks a little worse looks a little better. Where these modern Silent Hill games don't really do much for me aesthetically, where I think so much of what made early Silent Hill so horrifying is that it was, like, limited graphics on a PlayStation, where you can kind of barely make out figures. Do you have any experience with the Silent Hill franchise?
I haven't played them. I should. I've been meaning to play the Silent Hill.
I think this was announced the same time as Silent Hill 2 remake on the PS5. Yeah, and it does seem like a lot of the PS5.
Well, first of all, I don't have a PS5, but I kind of want to play the original, or at least a version of the original, as opposed to the remake. Because at the very least, like, I know with Resident Evil, a lot of people don't like the remakes because what they do, at least with the 2 and 3 remake. And, well, the 4.
Yeah, this game already seems to have a lot more combat than what I would be accustomed to in a Silent Hill game.
But the 2 and 3 remake, they kind of turn these fixed camera, like, exploration adventure games into top-down shooters, which basically requires changing the entirety of the way the gameplay works. Right. And it's you know, on some level, you might like one more than the other. I know Resident Evil 4 was the first in the series to kind of make it... like, I guess, over-the-shoulder kind of game, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think there's like a certain kind of style of gameplay and storytelling and horror that you get from the fixed camera model that they're just kind of treating as like an anachronism or something not worth or anachronistic, and just something that not worth keeping around, or something that doesn't have its own value.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of goes into the wider point of, like, I guess I'll say this later with Persona, but I think there's something to be said about how I think sometimes remakes kind of change more than they should.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess that's just kind of reminding me, like, it looks, I think one thing that it might not be Silent Hill. I think it is, though. I know one complaint about a lot of ports with it is that when people try to port the game, because the PlayStation 2 are kind of weird with how they, you know, render, do lighting and shading and stuff, like, the games are a lot less foggy or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a clear reminder of how, you know, there's
September 25th, 2025.
That's kind of a problem.
A lot of things in the State of Play, either there were two options. Either they didn't have a date, or they were all in September. I wonder what PlayStation is specific. Like, something that could have been a gameplay section is kind of added more pomp and circumstance, and it's made into like this this mocap acted scene, and I think it kind of takes you out a little bit. But there are, I think, most of the PS5 exclusives, if you want to call them that, are in fact remakes. And this isn't it, but I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit just to cover it very quickly. Well, there's actually a number of them I could talk about in this context. But this one here, the Metal Gear Solid Delta remake Snake Eater, that I'm not going to have a stance and be like, I'm boycotting this game, because I probably wouldn't have played it anyway, but I really have no standpoint or no enjoyment, but I'm not excited about a Konami remake from a series that famously ousted the guy who made it. Like, the Metal Gear Solid games are so much Kojima, and I don't even say, like, Kojima's like a perfect game designer, because we also got some more stuff about Death Stranding 2, and I don't care for the Kojima studio games, and I haven't played a whole lot of Metal Gear, but seeing this doesn't make me excited about Metal Gear. It's not shady because Konami owns the brand. They can really do whatever they want. It's not evil. It's not like the death of art or whatever. But whenever I see this, I'm like, I don't want to play this. Like, this is Kojima's game, and you guys famously kicked him out of the company.
Yeah.
Like, this remake means nothing to me.
I wonder how similar it is to the original Metal Gear Solid 3.
Well, it has all the Ape Escape parts. This was the end of the trailer. They showed all this off.
I was saying, I think literally when I was watching the trailer, I was like, I wonder how similar this is to the original Metal Gear Solid 3, because I haven't played it.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Ape Escape parts, and I'm like, okay, maybe. But,
that's an August
you know,
release.
you have a good point, because I do really want to get into Metal Gear. I know I say that on everything, but Metal Gear is a series where I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, this is probably a game series that will mean a lot to me once I get through it and play it and explore it. And that's why I totally buy into the, like, Kojima hype train. Because I think that, like, if nothing else, he's clearly a visionary, and he has very clear ideas of what he wants. And it's kind of sad, just him being ousted from Konami and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, oh, it's kind of cool, this game's coming out. Because honestly, some of the Metal Gear games are kind of hard to access, but at the same time, like,
I think I don't want to make it sound like I dislike Kojima, or he's like he's like an addict or whatever. But I do think part of the shift in perspective or change or realization when it comes to Kojima is the way video games have evolved, sort of enabling him, that when he was making PlayStation games, PS2 games, he was making them as a huge fan of cinema, of film, of movies. And we see that's the meme on his Twitter account, as he's constantly talking about movies he's seen. And when you're making a PS2 game, that's fine. Like, oh, you can design your character to be modeled after your favorite Evil Dead character. Or you could have all of these references to movies while still being a video game. But as video games get more and more cinematic, I think it kind of enables him to focus more on the film aspect. I would much rather see Kojima make a film than make a video game nowadays, because it seems that all his games, he's just like scanning actors he likes and having, I think it's Metal Gear Solid 4 that the opening cutscene is like 40 minutes, right? Something like that. There's a lot of that. And
I think there's more. I think there's a lot more than just 40 minutes for some of the games.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, the one cutscene, like the opening one, that could be incorrect. I've just heard that before. And I like storytelling in-game, active storytelling, like where you play through the game and understand it. And I think cinematics are kind of going in the opposite direction. I do think it's part of the argument of video games as art, is that when the argument of art in general, people think that art needs to be quality. Like the argument of cartoons or TV shows or movie, like, is this art, kind of fails to realize that art can be bad. Like, art doesn't just mean something is good. There is good art and bad art, but it's all art. And the debate of, are video games art, the examples people always use are like, oh, but think about the story of The Last of Us, or like Red Dead Redemption 2. You want to tell me those aren't art? And it's like, well, all of it's art. Like, Mario Odyssey is art. Fucking Flappy Bird is art. These are all pieces of art. And I think for so long, people, and this is a problem with wrestling as well, people wanted the medium to be taken seriously, but they believe that means that for it to be taken seriously, that it needs to be serious, which I don't think is the case.
100,000%. You know, it's funny. There's two things that I kind of want to bounce off of with you saying that. There was a conversation I kind of participated in a few months ago, maybe a couple months ago, where someone asked, like, is Walt Disney World art? Like, are the parks themselves art? And I would say yes. And I mean, I guess this is where it gets like muddy, because I guess, you know, there are things that you'd have to ask then if they are art as well. But, you know, you think about the set pieces of the areas are meant to like emulate, you know, certain movies or fantasy worlds and stuff like that. You have actors on the premises who pretend to be characters and interact with people. Like, there's a bunch of artistic kind of pursuits there. It's a whole it's a whole creative vision. You could also just straight up argue that construction is art. Yeah, I was about to say, like, is architecture art? And I think like in a certain sense it is, not in the same way that like entertainment, because I think it's not really entertainment, but I think there still is, you know, a lot of value and beauty in it. But actually, the other thing I wanted to say is that I remember someone making a tweet, and I don't entirely agree with the message, but I kind of like the way they were saying something. and they basically said that, like, I don't believe video games are art because of, I don't know, like Metal Gear and The Last of Us. I believe video games are art in the way that like Wii Sports and Mario Galaxy or something are art.
Yeah.
And there's like a certain way those games are presented and designed that I think, you know, there's not like a cinematic meaning behind them. Mario Galaxy has its quiet sadness though.
Right.
But there's a certain kind of way that you can design that there's a certain kind of thing that video games like that can achieve that you can't really achieve with movies. And frankly, I guess this kind of goes into my point that I'm pretty adamant that giving a game a story doesn't make it a better game. Giving a game like complex characters doesn't make it a better game. There's so many ways to make a good game, and often kind of thinking that every single game needs to be like very narratively rich, I think is absurd. I think that's a thing people say because it sounds like it should be correct, but it's obviously not the case. Or at least I think based on how people actually enjoy video games, it's obviously not the case.
Yeah, and I think people also kind of mischaracterize story in video games. This is something we talked about earlier, that like a video game story, the video game needs to screech to a halt and show you the story.
Yeah.
When the story could easily be told as you're playing the game.
Yeah.
But anything...
You know, one example, I remember this is something is I remember there's this like YouTube series I think called like Game Criticism in the Clinton Years or something like that, where it's basically someone re-uploading these old kind of
I've seen the gimmick Twitter account, yeah.
Where it's like this old kind of I don't know, like TV spot where this guy reviews the newest games coming out, and he says that like he likes Banjo-Kazooie, but he doesn't like the platforming, so he wishes that there would be a game that had the story of Banjo-Kazooie and the platforming and gameplay style of Mario. And I think to myself, like,
so strange.
I don't think that's really necessary. Like,
yeah.
I wish, because Banjo-Kazooie is still a dialogue-driven game. The characters talk and say things,
right?
And it's meant to be memorable. I mean, Mario 64 technically has dialogue, but it's obviously like no one ever talks about it, like literally ever. But the idea is that, oh yeah, Mario 64 is a good game, but I just wish it had a story. And I think that's like, I don't know. Seeing that game is incomplete because it doesn't have cutscenes or whatever, I just think is absurd. And I think people will say stuff like that, but they don't actually believe it. You know what I mean? It just sounds like, oh, if it has more story, that means it's more good. If that makes sense. And I don't know. I always fight back against that kind of mindset when I can, because I think it's not really fully thought through.
It's the same idea as like a longer game being better because it has more content.
It's like
it needs to be
not
dense.
Always.
Yeah, that's the
it's
feeling.
Hard to quantify these things, and I think that's just an important thing to be aware of.
But that was just my opinion on the Snake Eater remake. Again, I'm not being like, we should boycott this game. Like, you can play it, I don't care. I'm just not excited about it because of the context it exists in.
Yeah.
And that this is not exactly a remake, but sort of a phenomenon I talked about when we were playing the game together of, I guess, Platonic, if we are talking about Banjo-Kazooie, is a good example of a company, or rather a group of people, that were working on a game for a studio, and the studio went in a different direction, so they just made their own studio to make that game. It happened with Platonic and Yooka-Laylee. I think we were talking about Obsidian as well when it came to Fallout New Vegas. Like, that wanted to make that game but didn't have the rights to... Well, not New Vegas, because they were brought in to do that, but people who worked on the original games formed their own company to do sort of the same thing. And this is the new game in the Bloodstained series. And this was the original, I think, producer of Castlevania games and, like, developed Symphony of the Night and all that. And I think the Bloodstained series has gone... I don't want to say has gone more in the Symphony of the Night direction, because that was always the plan. I think just early, the first 2 years they started releasing games, they released one that was more akin to this, and then one that was more akin to, like, retro NES Castlevania, and used, obviously, like, retro art style. And I, although I didn't play a whole lot of either of them, kind of the DS games and the PlayStation games. Like, I played, I don't know what I didn't like about Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but I was excited for, like, oh man, a big Metroidvania. I think maybe that was, like, too much dialogue. I know I complained about that a lot, but for a Metroidvania, it was too much to, like, stop and just read dialogue. Like, I kind of like when games like this, Metroidvanias, are isolating. Like, you don't have a lot of people to talk to, and you kind of just have to figure it out yourself. But I'm I don't know if I will play this. It doesn't look bad. I'm just glad that they're continuing to make Bloodstained games. And over the past, I guess, 5 years maybe, I know so much has changed for me and for my life, but video games, at least from a graphical standpoint, have sort of plateaued a little bit. So whenever I see a game, like technically an older game, like from years and years ago, it doesn't feel that old to me. But no, they've been making, this is like the fourth Bloodstained game. They've been making them since 2019, 2020. So I'm just happy to see they're still doing that. I didn't even know they were happening. They're a complete like video game series happening in the background that we may not even be privy to. And I guess that's the purpose of these directs where you watch, or these presentations, where you watch so much and you're like, there's no way I could play all these games, or maybe like, oh, some of these games are boring. But it exists like that so that they can cast a wide net. So everybody who likes a different type of game will have something there for themselves.
Yeah.
Have you played any Castlevania or Bloodstained games?
I played Super Castlevania 4. I think that's what it's called. It's the I think it's the big SNES one with Simon Belmont. I've been meaning to play Symphony of the Night's the one on the PlayStation, right?
Yes, I believe so. I think it had a DS remake is what I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay. I think there's also a couple games that came out on like the Game Boy Advance or something. I forget. But I've wanted to play those. It's a cool series. I really liked what I played of it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm open to doing it at some point in the future. I'm not really like eager to. But I haven't played anything by any of the Bloodstained games. But I'm not against that either.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fun. I think it is funny in the context of what we just talked about of Konami using the IP they have to make remakes of older games, and the people who made those games don't work there anymore, and then the people who want to make Castlevania games because Konami just no longer wants to do that. I think Konami has had a little bit of a resurgence, not to the level that something like Capcom or Bandai Namco have, but they're still making games that people want to play. I mean, Survival Kids was a Konami classic, and who's going to forget about that game? But, I mean, I guess ultimately my opinions are I'm glad this game exists.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think of games like this as kind of a victory just for creatives in general, is that it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, you can't like, I mean, on some level it is kind of settling for something, but it's nice to see creatives like this be able to kind of bring back, kind of make stuff the way they used to, even though they don't have like the rights to their game, like their series anymore.
Yeah, it's always a feel-good story. I don't actually know if I've played any of the games like that. I'm hoping to play the Yooka-Laylee remake, because I know people were kind of unfavorable to that game when it launched. I don't even really remember what the issue was, but I just wasn't playing that many games around that time, so I'm more likely to check it out when the remake comes around. I still don't think we know when the remake is, but that was the first game. This is Bloodstained: The Scarlet Engagement, by the way. I don't think this was one of the older games, but no, maybe this is a bad example. I was looking for the one that looks more like an NES game, the retro style. I think what's not standing out to me about this game is kind of how dull it looks compared to the other Bloodstained games.
And
in a Metroidvania or like a combat-focused game, you kind of need to know the difference between the foreground and the background and what you're looking at. And when it's zoomed in like this, it does, but like in this kind of, these are more cutscenes, but in this grayish area, it's kind of tell with all the brush in the background.
Yeah, I think when it's not done well, it can really be an eyesore.
Well, that's the extent of everything about Bloodstained: The Scarlet Engagement, at least for us. This is another Konami game that I legitimately have nothing to say about this game. I forgot, or rather just like didn't have the brain capacity to remember everything or just have everything, all the series going concurrently in my brain. I knew, it didn't occur to me again that they are still like making Digimon games, and this is the Digimon Storytime Ranger. They're making like Digimon RPGs, and I'm wondering if people view this as like a competitor to Pokemon at all, or like its own thing. Because I remember Digimon, although I never got into it, was the main thing that it was like you were either into Digimon or Pokemon. Like people were rarely into both, and they would draw battle lines.
The vast majority of people were more Pokemon.
Yeah, and then stuff like Yokai Watch, they would occasionally be like, oh, this is like the next thing. But it's interesting to see the different direction from a gameplay standpoint that Digimon is.
The Digimon games are like nothing like Pokemon games.
Yeah, this started as a show, and then they made licensed games about them. But now it's sort of, I don't know if there is a modern Digimon show, but now just exists in the context of a video game. Have you played any Digimon games? Do you have any feelings towards Digimon at all?
Renamon is sexy. That's it. Like straight
Interesting.
Up.
I don't know which one that is. So
I love that bit. I think I once watched this when I was a kid. It's like a Pokemon anime parody. It's like one of the I still find this hilarious. I think just because I found it funny as a kid.
Right.
Where
it's like slam dunk.
Where like Ash where it's like the characters of Pokemon like drawn like shit. And Professor Oak asks Ash which Pokemon he wants, and he's like, I want Agumon or something like that. Professor Oak says some shit like, you can't have that, Ash. That's a Digimon. This is Pokemon, or some shit like that.
It's either
I just remember that being funny.
Crap Pokemon, or like I watched Pokemon but with animals instead as a kid. That's the one that like there were a lot of like Newgrounds.
Yeah, it's like the
poorly
Newgrounds
animated
shit from like 2004.
Yeah.
Honestly,
that was a fun era when the extent of people.
Oh yeah.
When most people talked about like the Pokemon anime and was doing parodies all the time.
Yeah.
This is dropping concurrent. Footage shown is under development. It's coming out in October. This is the same month as Legends ZA now. I'm actually just realizing. So this feels kind of like a PAL world where like people who really hate Pokemon Game Freak will be like, well, look how much better their competition is, and it's kind of just like, it's okay.
I mean, this doesn't look. I mean, I guess I've seen bits and pieces of previous Digimon games. I don't think this looks particularly different from them. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's gonna be a lot of fanfare this game, or at the very least, I don't think there's gonna be significantly more fanfare than there are for previous Digimon games or whatever.
There has to be like some Digimon shooters out there, like the Vietnam soldier who's still fighting years after the war. Somebody is still fighting on the front lines of Digimon being better than Pokemon, and they still play these games like religiously.
Yeah,
and I'm sure like it has a better story, quote unquote, because there's cutscenes and voice acting.
Dude, at first I thought it was an Atlas game. It seems like that's the kind of what they go for. These games definitely have a very different presentation. Honestly, yeah, no, it really reminds me of like Shin Megami Tensei, at least the menus and stuff. I think that's kind of what they're going for. Though I will say, I don't think I've ever met a person in my entire life who's been like,
Agumon Black.
I've never met a person in my entire life who's like, yeah, dude, I love the Digimon games. I've never met someone who said that to me.
Yeah.
And that's not a dig at Digimon. I just don't know how popular these games actually are.
That's what I'm saying. Like somewhere in some secluded corner of the internet, there needs to be Digimon shooters that are like still mad about Pokemon, and they're like, why are people not playing these games? There has to be, like, statistically speaking, there's got to be someone out there like that. But yeah, that's more than I thought I had to say about Digimon Story Time Ranger. By the way, it's not really Story Time as one word. It's Story Time Ranger, because you go through time in this game.
It's a Digimon story game where you're a ranger of time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Where you're a ranger of sea. Okay, so that's that. This is another thing, this one really seemed not confusing, because I think it is a deliberate choice, and I think it's fine. But this is another remake for the PS5, and this is a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evilise Chronicles, which was a PlayStation 1 game. And it does the thing that Dragon Quest does, where it has, and even like the Master Chief Collection, where it has the remake, but then also within the game you can choose to play the original version on that game. And right now we're looking at a cutscene, and it seems like the main focus of the game is that they're adding voice acting. Although if it's the PS1, I think it already had voice acting. No, I think they say in the trailer that the big selling point is that, all these characters are voiced. But this is the remake we're looking at right now. And I'm not one to be like, oh man, if it's like a 2D pixelated game, then it's outdated, it's not worth it. But that is what the remake looks like. And then they say like, oh, you can choose to play the original, and the original just looks like this. Like, it more or less...
They basically do the, look
at this. This is the difference between classic and enhanced.
So they kind of, like, do something based on the old HUD, too. Okay, I like that. Interesting.
But it seems like if given this decision, you would want to enhance this a little more, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think what they're actually doing probably isn't that intense. I think what all they did, because so what they do is they seem to. You ever see when people emulate games, they'll like make the pixels all mushy and stuff?
Yes, I hate that.
Yeah, I hate that. It seems like that's what the enhanced version is, or at the very least, that seems to be kind of what they're going for, or something similar to it. Meanwhile, you're basically turning on like mushy graphics to the sprite graphics, and
Yeah.
also I guess HUDs that are more based on what the original game was like.
And a
I wonder,
vignette for the aspect ratio.
when I first saw this, I thought you would kind of swap between the two of them, like you could, I guess in like Halo Combat, like the Halo Anniversary Edition. I kind of hope that's the case, but it might not be this. That might not be the situation. So they might be actually kind of.
It just says both versions are included.
Okay, wait, let me. Oh, so there's adjustments to the story. Okay, that's gonna be kind of annoying.
Adjustments to the story, fully voiced dialogue, and much more.
Okay,
So,
I was hoping it was basically just like a texture pack.
Maybe a Final Fantasy Tactics fan could be like, no, it's like so different, like the controls of modern. But like this is, it just kind of stood out to me. It's like not even like a complaint, at least from a gameplay loop and aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what they're changing. I wonder what they're changing to the story, because honestly, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Or it's not like, I understand why it sometimes happens. I hate when video games have like several translations that people argue about, like which one's the best one. I hate when there's several versions of the story that people argue about which is the best one, because I feel like, oh great, I have to play this twice to like have my own opinion, or I might accidentally play the worst version. I'll only find out if I play the whole game again, or some stuff like that. You know, and that's I'm kind of a little frustrated about it now, because when I first heard about this, a Final Fantasy Tactics remake, I was really excited because I've heard a lot of good things about that game. It seems like something I would really like. I want to play more PlayStation 1 RPGs.
September 30th.
But now I'm like frustrated. I'm like, shit, which version do I play? You know what I mean? Because I don't know, it's a whole different, you know. I guess
if there's story changes,
I feel like I'm kind of stuck here, you know.
If there's story changes, I don't think you can easily switch between the two, like with a button.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. I was hoping it was like that. You can just kind of like, it's basically just, hey, if you want something that's more faithful to the original graphics of the game, you can play this mode. If you want to have something that's a little bit spiffed up, you can play this mode, but you can always swap between the two of them because it's just a cosmetic change. That's what I was hoping. But now,
I think this
apparently
remake is like, cute though, like kind of keeping the sprites. I don't know how true to the original game are the animations.
They look pretty, well, the animations maybe not, but it looks pretty faithful from what I've seen. And I like that a lot because, I don't know, I feel like there's something very rich and valuable about playing a game, at least in a version based on its own hardware, as opposed to just, recreating it from scratch. You know, there's nothing that...
Yeah, but if you're selling this as a game, I would want it to be more than just like putting the Super Nintendo emulator or the PlayStation emulator filter over it to like brush down the pixels into lines or to get rid of the sharpness.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that depends on the price. I guess like for me, I think I really like I guess I like retro games, or at the very least I like SNES era games. Yeah. And I think that I'm kind of glad when I like seeing game, or not SNES, this is a PS1 game. Yeah. But I like seeing games from this era or that from like over 20 years ago get remakes that basically are just kind of like very slight remakes, but the everything about the game is pretty much the same, or everything like that really means that's that important. I don't know. I think that's valuable because I think this style of game development, this style of presentation, still has a lot of value, and not every single game needs to have like, oh, okay, now we have to make them all into 3D models.
Yeah, I can't imagine Final Fantasy Tactics is like a huge seller. Like I know it has its audience, but I could understand why they don't want to put like too much effort into it. But I'm just, I guess I'm comparing this to like the Super Mario RPG remake, where it still keeps the proportions and designs of the characters, but makes them like cheapified models, or even like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, even though I don't think that executed it super well.
Yeah, actually, I have to. I'm actually asking myself now, like, which I would prefer to play: the original Switch version, or the Switch remake, or the SNES Mario RPG. It's a good question, because I mean they're both great games. I mean it's not like it's that big of a difference. But
the main thing I've heard is just it's easier to hit like the timed inputs on a modern game, modern television, which is just like a quality of life change. But no, this just stood out to me as strange. There's a lot of things to talk about in these, in the PlayStation State of Play. I think I have more. I think because I watched them in order, so by the time I got to like the Summer Games Fest and the Xbox One, I was just so tired already. I'm like, whatever is important. This one isn't even anything worth talking about, other than like the protagonist looks like Corey Spaz Kid from the internet, and it's one of those games where you like Quap or like I Am Bread, where you control their limbs individually, and it's silly. It's like that. I like that everything is a type of slop now. Like every genre, like this is like what would you call it? Is this walk slop?
It's rage slop, dude. Or it's
Rage
quap.
slop.
You can just call it quap slop because I feel like quap's the game everyone thinks
That's
about.
pretty
Like,
good. I don't even agree with the classifications of referring to games as slop. I just think it's really funny. It's the same thing as like Wojaks.
It's
like,
funny to call it
Wojaks are used for such like not evil reasons, but like stupid like incel reasons. But I think the existence of Wojaks is so fucking funny because there are some images that exist. You can like that in the Treatler image. What makes them funny is you can tell that the person who edited the image or drew it was filled with so much rage when they made it.
One of my favorite like Wojak Wojak derivative memes is the I hate suicide image where it's like just like a really really happy like soy jack or chud. I forget what it's called. It's like I just love that shit. I think it's hilarious. So I mean,
the more specific they get, they're just mad about like one person. Like it's not even a type of person; it's just someone they know. But I mean,
I don't know. This game looks funny. I don't think I never got good at Quab. I remember trying to play it a couple times. Yeah. I like those kinds of like really weird games.
I think maybe Game Pass has spoiled me because this looks like something I would get on Game Pass and download and like play for a little bit. But I mean, I want to support indie games, but it's not. I don't know if I would play it. I think I'm going to forget about it after today. But it's not because it's bad, just because there's an abundance of video games and there's only so much you could play. But that's baby steps. What do I have after this? Oh, these I paired together because one was featured in the PlayStation State of Play and one was in the Xbox presentation. And I think they did this in the early 2000s as well, where they split it down the line. And I like when a series has 2D and 3D and they make modern games for both of them. I'll just show this. This is like a bigger, like, oh, we're going back to this. This is Ninja Gaiden 4, which is a 3D action game. And I think the first three, I mean, just the Ninja Gaiden series that are just simply called Ninja Gaiden, 1 through 3, were on the original Xbox, if I remember correctly. And they're more, and it's got Platinum Games, it's got Koei Tecmo. It's more of a 3D action game. And it doesn't look bad. I mean, if you were a fan of the Ninja Gaiden games for the original Xbox, I think this is exactly what you're... Again, like, I can imagine fans of these series getting really excited, but it doesn't really mean something to me while I'm watching these presentations. But that's why it's good to cast a wide net. But this was in the Xbox presentation. In the PlayStation presentation was something that, again, I don't know if I'll necessarily, like, focus on either of these games or dedicate a lot of time to them. But I think I prefer this, maybe just because I prefer the action of a 2D game like this over when it comes to a hack and slash action game.
It looks more unique to me.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're doing both. I'm glad that within the same year they're releasing a 2D Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which is a really funny name for a Ninja Gaiden game, by the way, because they're famously rage-inducing.
If you showed me this game, I would clock it as something Ninja Gaiden adjacent pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But like if you showed me the other game, it would, and you told me, I probably wouldn't be able to tell that it's literally a Ninja Gaiden game.
Yeah.
For a while.
I just know because the 3D Ninja Gaiden games were like a selling point of the original Xbox, and when it didn't really have a lot. Well, maybe that's wrong, but like I remember.
Maybe it's just because. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Maybe it's just because like this isn't like this kind of genre isn't for me, but like I don't know. It feels like every like gray brown or like dark colored. It's not like this isn't that colorful, but it's a pretty dark game. Like all these games kind of look the same to me in some way.
I think this looks way different from anything else we've seen. I like how colorful it is, but it's. I don't even. That's a lot of my feeling, or unfortunately, my default opinion on a lot of these games is not even like. I think the worst I could feel is indifference, and I think that is the case with a lot of these, where it's like it's not bad enough for me to be like, do not play this, but not good enough where I'm like, oh, I need to play this for sure. It's kind of just like, oh, this is good. I don't want to say anything bad about it. I probably won't play it. Because there's only so many games I can play. I was just glad that they're doing both of them. Doing both a 2D Ninja Gaiden, although this looks much more exciting to me. But I think I was aware of Ninja Gaiden because this Ninja Gaiden series. Because it was the era where, I think prior to this, it was just an NES character. So they brought it back as a 3D character for the Xbox, and people who were nostalgic for NES or Super Nintendo games would talk about it as like, that's right, Ninja Gaiden's back, and he's even more epic and edgier than ever. Like, it's way more bloody. But I don't think it has the same, there he is, the same spirit of the difficulty of these games. I just think from an art standpoint, I like these more, and I know the so retro thing has kind of been driven into the ground, but I do. And also, they say at some point, I don't know if they say it in the dialogue or over text, that the soundtrack has like a ton of tracks, and there are guest tracks produced by artists who worked on the original.
Fox?
No, I wish. The original Ninja Gaiden game. Like, again, July 30th, so I probably don't have the time to play it. But it seems like the music in this will be way better. The gameplay loop will be much better. It's funny that, first of all, this says Xbox Game Studio. This is on the PlayStation YouTube channel right now.
That's kind of funny to me.
It's funny that one of them was in the State of Play. This is the one that was in the State of Play, and this was the one that was in the Xbox presentation. Glad they're casting a lot.
Like all fucked up, yeah.
Shout out Koei Tecmo. But that is... And this is another one of these collection games. And I think earlier when you were talking about... Maybe it wasn't Final Fantasy Tactics, but maybe closer to Welcome Tour, having a game that just has a lot of information in it, not necessarily the gameplay, but I think the prospect of having, because these are the people, that made all these legacy collections, and at first I thought this was going to be an arcade cabinet, but no, it's one of these collections. It's the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection that just features all of the pre-3D games, I believe, even like the weird spin-off ones, or maybe 4 is 3D, features all these games, and then it seems like because they're showing a lot of documentary footage, that it features a lot of behind-the-scenes details, and it's one of those games that you get just to like look at all the stuff in it. It probably is like fun to play these older games. Honestly, having old fighting games on a collection, the best thing to do is just to port them all to a game and then add crossplay and roll back netcode, and that's what they did. I think it's a nostalgia-based game for people that loved Mortal Kombat when they were younger to play, and then just to go through these games. And I didn't even know it was going to be on the Switch too. Does it have a release date?
And it's Collection with a K.
Yeah, because Mortal Kombat. No, just 2025.
Oh wow, it's releasing on the Warner Bros. And the Atari? Holy shit.
Yeah. See, they had to do something because they just lost Multiverses. Oh, I'll talk about that as well. Is there anything in between? Yeah, I'll just say this real quick. They're adding levels to Astrobot in July, and I greatly appreciate that because I hope they keep doing this forever. The only reason I bought a PS5 was to play Astrobot, and I loved it. I think it was the game of the year last year for me. And severely missing 3D platformers with all of this fan service. I just love Astrobot a lot, and I hope that they see that, and they have... This is their Japan team, because they folded all their Western teams. And that's the main takeaway from this State of Play is all the PlayStation Western teams have been folded and liquidized, so there's just all these Japanese teams, which is totally fine. I mean, not the liquidization part, but just like, I don't care who's making the games. But I hope they have a skeleton crew continually making levels for Astrobot. I hope this game just keeps going for years, just add new challenge levels every 5 months or something, just something to do in Astrobot, because I don't know when we're going to get another one of these games. Hopefully the popularity and the gross of Astrobot will push them in this direction to make more of them, because I really like this character as well, but I'm just glad they're doing this. I totally forgot what I was just talking about to transition into this. I'll save that. What I do... Oh, right, because we were talking, I said, they just shut down Multiverses. Is if you are a DC fan that really wants to play a fighting game with DC characters, now you're stuck playing Injustice 2. Because earlier this year, I don't know if it was earlier this year, I think it was late last year, they announced the Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game collection. And this excited a lot of people about the prospect of there being a modern Marvel vs. Capcom game, because the issue with the last Marvel vs. Capcom game is that because of the popularity of the MCU, they removed beloved MMVC characters like Doctor Doom, like Magneto, X-Men in general, because it started out as X-Men versus Street Fighter and then became Marvel vs. Capcom. So there were a lot of those characters like, we gotta have Hawkeye in the game, we gotta have Miss Marvel instead of having your Wolverines, your Deadpools, your Doctor Dooms. But now that we're in an era of Marvel that they have those characters and they're using those characters, it seemed like the perfect time, especially just because of animation and video games in general, to move over to a modern Marvel vs. Capcom game. But it seems that Capcom has really funneled the bag, because this new tag Marvel fighting game is being made by Arc System Works, who are the team behind Guilty Gear, as you could tell by the art style and the way the game controls. And I am very excited for this. I'm a little worried because I'm more of a Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Smash Bros. Fighter. So the very fast 2D, like Dragon Ball, Guilty Gear games, have never really... I don't know if I don't really play them, so they just look daunting, but I think all fighting games look daunting. But when I saw this, when Doctor Doom showed up, I punched the air in real life. I felt so excited, because this is who I played in Marvel vs. Capcom. And I don't think these characters are going to control like they did in Marvel vs. Capcom. I'm glad to see Star-Lord there. But I think it's worth checking out just because of the IP of these characters. And there's Storm as well. And I am going to play it. I think this is probably going to be the game that gets me to play this is a 4v4 tag fighter. Yeah, 4v perfect timing. To play one of these Arc System Work games. Because I mean, when I was younger playing Smash Bros, I saw Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Tekken and thought, like, there's no way I could pull that off. And then when I started playing those games, I understood it a little better. I was like, okay, no, this is how you do these combos. But these games in particular, like, I see them, like, I have no idea. Like, there's no clue there's no way I could pull that off. I have no clue how it works. So maybe the way to learn something like Guilty Gear would be a game like this, because I like all those games aesthetically. They animified Miss Marvel. I'm glad that she's in this game. I hope they use more, I don't want to say unpopular, because Miss Marvel is like modern popular, and this one doesn't come out till next year, so at least I have the time to wait, but I'm excited for this. Do I have anything beyond the state of play? Maybe not really, but I do have this game. Oh, by the way, do you have any thoughts on Marvel Tokon Fighting Spirit before we move on to the next thing?
Not really. I mean, I've always had trouble getting into like traditional fighting games. I think it's just I think like, you know, the one I tried to get into as a teenager was Skullgirls, because I had friends who played it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. It always felt like there was like a barrier to entry with those things. It's kind of hard to get into, and I don't know. I think like I never was like motivated enough to try. I was never motivated enough to like really try and get good at it, so I never did.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's about how I feel. This would definitely be one. And it's not just me being a Marvel fan, it's me being a fan of Marvel vs. Capcom. And I guess there is a part of me that's a little upset that we're getting an Arc System Works Marvel fighter instead of a Marvel vs. Capcom, because what I liked about that was the crossover aspect of it. But it seems Capcom is going in a different direction, and they're going to keep supporting Street Fighter 6. I'm interested to see if we learn anything at EVO, because that's only in a handful of weeks from now. I think I can count on one hand. And that's normally where they announce fighting game guest characters and just more stuff about fighting games in general. I legitimately thought that game was going to come out later this year. Okay, it's good. I'm glad that it's 2026. Basically, whenever there's a game they announce that's far away, I actually feel relief, because I'm like, oh, there's so many games I got to play this year already.
It makes everything seem more manageable.
Yeah, at least in theory. But also, like, you don't need to play a game when it launches. I should probably just be okay with waiting a couple years and, like, maybe if I hear enough about it. But that's just what... I have a large backlog as well that I definitely need to get through. But I mentioned this earlier. This is a new Ghost of game, Ghost of Yotei, from the series of Ghost of Tsushima. This is a game I know nothing about and I've never played, but I did reach out to some of my friends who really like the Souls-like games, the Souls-style games, to get some feedback. And I got some feedback from former Bestest Boy and friend of the channel, my buddy Chris. I'm waiting for the polite clap. Wait for it. Hold on. Man, that's taking a while, huh? I guess because I have so many tabs open. Oh, there it is. There's the polite clap for Chris. This is the Chris review of the state of Ghost of Yotei. He says... Well, I never played Ghost of Tsushima, but it looks pretty interesting. Probably going to be $80, so I'm not playing it, lol. And that is what I have about Ghost of Yotei. And that's all I have to say.
I think I have Ghost of Tsushima. I have no idea how, but I think I just got my hands on it for the PS4 somehow.
Did you play it at all?
No, I did.
You just have it.
There's a lot of games I just have, and I have no idea. Like,
I think I have Knack for the PS4, but that's the PlayStation I don't have. Maybe it's backwards compatible with the 5, but I just like Scrimblow Bimblows. It's my favorite genre of game. But
Knack 2, baby!
Yeah, we're going in a completely different order, but as far as the PlayStation State of Play goes, the last game that we have to cover here, I think is worth bringing up, is this game, 007 First Light. And I think it's very funny that, well, first of all, 007 in and of itself is kind of tied to video games a large amount, because that it is just a licensed series, but I suppose it's a beloved series because of GoldenEye 007 on the N64. And then I think there was a shooter, a 007 shooter for the GameCube and the Wii. I could be wrong with that. It might be a survival kid situation where I didn't know there was as much games or as much love. But this does feel like more of not a movie game, but an IP game. And I think it is really, really funny that the most popular movies, I'm saying like highest grossing, right? The easiest slam dunk for a blockbuster in Hollywood is to make a movie about a video game. And now we have video games that are based on film characters set in the worlds of those movies. Because this feels more like, this is less of, because this isn't Pierce Brosnan, this is a totally new guy. this isn't, oh, this is a licensed character or this is a licensed game of the latest 007. This is a concurrent splitting timeline. This is a prequel because, as we know, like James Bond is played by a ton of different people. This is not a video game based on a movie or based on several movies. This is a video game set in that series. And I think it's a really interesting phenomenon as Hollywood is going towards video games to make movies. Now there are series. I think it's also fun that like movie series that likely wouldn't get a modern movie or modern show are now just getting games where you could play those characters.
I mean, I think it occurs to me that, I think that I haven't watched the James Bond movies, admittedly, but I know a lot of people really like them. And to be fair, the original GoldenEye for the N64 is pretty well liked.
Oh,
but I think there's always been a stigma about licensed games, especially in the past. I mean, maybe nowadays, there are more examples of licensed games that are really fun and really well liked.
Well, now there's just less of them in general.
Yeah, true. There's not as much like shovelware licensed game like iCarly for the Wii or whatever.
Right.
But James Bond is popular enough and well liked enough, and I think the idea of being a British spy, going all over the place. It's what's the word? It's thought provoking. It's interesting. It's appealing. And the idea of like, oh, let's make a game for this, but not like as a cash grab, just as to make like a good game based off of it and hope it sells well. Like that's a good idea, and I think it will sell well. I think it'll be good, and people will like it. So it's like, wow, it took us a long time to realize that. Like, oh wow, we can make like a really, really, what's the word? Extravagant game.
Oh yeah.
And like put effort into it.
It is funny as well that in between people making licensed games and people making these movie games that are set in these franchises, or maybe franchise game is a better descriptor. People have made games based on franchises they like. So it's really funny to see a James Bond movie or a James Bond game like this. And then they announced, I think, maybe at the Summer Games Fest, that also you can play as this character or kill this character or find the actor in Hitman. Like, they added a Hitman update. Because, very obviously, Hitman is inspired the Xbox piece of things. So I'm jumping ahead here to... Where did it go? To this. Revealing DLC for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And I think it's so funny that there are two infamous video game series that are heavily based on Indiana Jones before they started making these franchise games for Indiana Jones. And it's funny that this Indiana Jones game, despite being first person, kind of takes a lot from Tomb Raider and Uncharted, because those games are very heavily, like, obviously inspired by Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that circle works like that. And speaking of the circle, I played a lot of the Great Circle, and I feel like I didn't make it that far. I didn't beat it. I do want to go back to it before this DLC comes out. But I hope it's not a one and done. I hope that this is another example of, like, no one else in live action is going to play Indiana Jones. So I feel much more, not comfortable, but like okay playing them as a video game character voiced by Troy Baker, I think, where the character just looks like Harrison Ford. Like, I think there are some series where there are some series when you bring them in the modern age, it's like, okay, do you want to see this as a movie or do you want to see this as like a streaming series? And I do think there are a number of series that, although they are good movies, I think I would like to see them as a video game. I want to play as Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible in a video game. I want to do death-defying feats as that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle at all?
Nope.
I didn't play... Weirdly, I played a lot of it, but I guess I didn't play enough of it. It's one of those very large games, but it's one that you could play on Game Pass. So since we finished the PlayStation State of Play, basically all the games announced in the Xbox Showcase are on Game Pass. So a lot of them are a lot easier for me to be like, yeah, I'll get that. And I guess we'll jump past the... Actually, we'll go in, like, theming order. Since we're talking about, you just said licensed games, like there used to be a lot of shovelware, and now because there's not a lot of middle of the road games anymore, like I guess double A would be the best term. It's either indie or triple A games. So this was a GoldenEye trailer for a TV show at first. It would be fun to show off at... There was some of that. Like, I don't think they showed any trailers, but they announced that old Twisted Metal games were coming to PS5, and it's coming around the same time that the Season 2 of the Twisted Metal show, which I even forgot about. But now even licensed games that normally would have just been like, oh, you just buy this for your Game Boy Advance or whatever, get major release trailers like this and are hotly anticipated. And like I said, when it comes to franchises that I don't need to see rebooted on TV or on the screen, but can exist in video games. Like, I don't need to see more Timmy Turner or Danny Phantom or Jimmy Neutron, I don't need those shows. But I think it's fun that the Nicktoons continue to exist within a video game. This is Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny. And really, the only gameplay footage they show, if it cuts over to this fucking guy, the only footage they show is SpongeBob fighting these characters. And again, it looks like a licensed game, but I think it's interesting that we're so not starved. I don't know if starved is the word, but there's a drought of licensed games, like just kind of middle of the road licensed games, that a game like this that would have just been like, yeah, you just buy it at the store for $5, you play it on the GameCube, is now getting a major release and trailer like this. Are there any series that you could think of that you would rather see continue as a video game as opposed to like getting a full reboot of their show?
I can't think of anything, to be honest.
I'm fine with the Nicktoons continuing like this because, I mean, Multiverses has been shut down. I guess that also happened between streams, but it wasn't worth talking about. Or no, that was last week. My mistake. Yeah, it definitely wasn't worth talking about. And Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl left a lot to be desired. I hope to see more in the Nicktoons series of games. Like, I hope they do a lot with these characters. Because I think they learned there's a lot of nostalgia there and they have a lot of rapport. I remember even, like, the Battle for Bikini Bottom remake got a lot of pop and circumstance, despite it being, like, a licensed game. And I know people have a lot of nostalgia for that game.
Battle for Bikini Bottom. That's part of it, I think.
Yeah. And, like, it's not a bad game, but it's weird that it's held up as, like, one of... with the greats of 3D platformers when, people like it because it's SpongeBob, which is fine. But I think people probably give it maybe too much credit. But do you have any feelings about Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny in the very short amount of gameplay and footage that we see?
It might be fun. Honestly, I guess I've never been optimistic about these kinds of games. Even when I was a kid, I would see stuff like this. I'd be like, yeah, I probably don't like it. I could be totally wrong. I could probably play this game and I'll be like, whoa.
I like that it has a D&D vibe. And like this kind of looks promising to me. That all these characters, and by the way, if I can...
To summon the most ferocious,
Like, it's the voice, and because they're playing D&D, they're creating their own characters. And I think the bit is SpongeBob just makes his character him because he's, like, stupid and happy all the time. But I think it would be fun to play characters like this that are sort of modeled after their Nicktoons, but...
Strong voicing there.
Huh?
Is that not Tara Strong?
I think it is.
Which character is she voicing? I'm trying to think,
Timmy.
like, who's...
That's Timmy Turner.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, that's why he's got the star and he's pink. Well, I wonder who these other characters are then.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because, like, cause maybe
Who's
Katara?
Blue? Oh, that might be, like, Avatar, yeah.
I forgot that Timmy Turner was voiced by Tara Strong.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that Timmy, because there was a dispute with Nelvana, Timmy wasn't in Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. Is that Fanboy and Jump Jump? Oh, God, I hope so. Yeah, actually, this is,
We're fucked.
This is Bunsen is a Beast. This is
Sanjay and Craig. Is that Craig? Is that Craig?
Yeah,
from
this
Sanjay
green one
and
is
Craig?
Badooz. The orange one is
Robot from Robot and Monster.
Oh, dude, they got all the classics. I have been seeing a lot of whenever there's a Nicktoons game, I see a ton of fan art. I've been seeing a lot with Manny from El Tigre, and I hope there are series that like don't really, people don't really remember or watch, or they aren't held up as like the big four. But I hope they get a lot of love in the video games because they're very clearly made by fans of those series. But yeah. A lot of the games showing off at the Summer Games Fest, by the way, and in the entire E3 weekend, is this. There's about 10 seconds of gameplay, and the rest is animation. Not great animation, but this game is coming out. What does it say? I can't see because this fucking thing's covering it. Nope, I guess we'll never know what year it's coming out. 2020X. That's for a later date. I guess we can go back to the, we were already in the Xbox presentation, so let's focus on there before we circle back to the Summer Games Fest. What's weird is that this wasn't at the beginning of the Xbox showcase. This was in the middle, and this, 2-minute bit is the extent of what they showed about it. And you would think that the entire presentation would revolve around it. And they would have a lot more to say. All they said is oh yeah, we're making this thing, and all the games you see later in this presentation are going to be supported on this. This is the Xbox handheld we've been, hearing rumblings about for years now. And obviously everyone wants to have their Switch now. I'm not even saying Nintendo invented the idea. I think it's just everyone came to the same conclusion because it's a good idea. But I'm worried that this is going to be less of the Switch 2, where you have games downloaded on your Xbox handheld, and more of the, I forget what it's called, the PlayStation Portal, where it's just using a cloud connected to your console.
I think it said you could either stream or
Yeah,
or
I
have it
don't
on your
love
console.
the
Because the
look
thing
of
is,
it.
it loads seamless play. Actually, just watch download natively, stream
Stream
from the
from the
cloud.
cloud.
So I guess you can do both, right? That's what I assumed it
I
meant.
hope you can do both.
Um,
Yeah, it's also
one
more
I
like
actually
a Steam Deck. You could just open other tabs, which is what
Yeah,
they're gonna
and
show.
that's actually a thing they showed. I think they showed, yeah, you can like go on battle.net, Steam, and Discord. And what that basically means is because it just runs Windows natively. And that's actually a big benefit I think this is going to have because, you know, the Steam Deck, they have to run things on Linux. Well, I assume they
Right.
chose to because that meant they have a lot more control of the operating system with Linux being open source. They're really able to work with it a lot more flexibly than if they were to have to, you know, put all their eggs in the Windows basket for their own hardware. But since Microsoft and Windows are one and the same,
Yeah.
they don't have to deal with that.
Do you think you'd be able to run Steam on this?
I don't know. I mean, if you can do it on the Steam Deck, I don't see it as
But
too.
do you think it would be like they would allow that, like just to run?
Oh well, I think they literally advertise that. Like you can use Steam anything. I mean, because you can just use it as if it's a Windows computer.
Yeah.
So at least that's what to my understanding. So if you can do that, you can absolutely run games on Steam.
Right. It
You know,
seems
it's
like the
funny,
way PlayStation and Xbox are going about their handhelds are less like this is its own console and more of like something like cloud gaming on your phone where it's like you can play your console games on this. But
Yeah.
because they've been selling Xbox as a service more than Xbox as a console for a while now. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, a handheld with Game Pass is already worth it.
Straight up, what's the point of getting a Series X? Like just straight up. Like I mean, maybe that's harsh, but I have not like at any point in my life thought like, oh, I should get a Series X.
Yeah. Legitimately, the only reason I got it was so that I could transfer my GTA save. And the reason I got a Steam Deck is so I could play GTA Online in handheld. But then they added Battle Eye, like a mandatory update to get around hackers and cheaters that isn't compatible with Linux. So you can't play GTA Online on the Steam Deck anyway. Also, they're showing a lot of Hollow Knight Silksong. And they said that either in this or later in the Xbox Direct that this is a launch title for this. So, I don't know when we're going to hear the release date of Silksong. I know people have wanted that for a while, but I guess whenever, it just says holiday 2025. So whenever we get the release date for the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X, we'll know the release date of Hollow Knight Silksong. I don't think it's going to be exclusive, though.
That's the first Xbox like title to have a good name in like 20 years.
You think ROG Xbox Ally X?
Well, Xbox Ally, I like that name.
I think it sort of has the same naming convention. I guess you don't need the ROG. You could just call it the Xbox Ally. But it does seem, this and the PlayStation 1 seem more like controllers than they do individual consoles. I don't know how I feel about the handles on it. I guess I'll need it in my hands. Oh, 1 terabyte of storage. Oh, you know what? That's actually a good deal. This thing, it like seems real. This Game Pass, all of it, like seems like a great deal. I don't know if I'll get it on holiday 2025. But like I said, like I'm not excited, but a little bit more okay with seeing games that I'm sort of neutral on in the Xbox Direct because they say that they're all in Game Pass. This game, for example, The Outer Worlds 2, made by Obsidian Entertainment. Have you ever played Outer Worlds, the first one?
No, I haven't.
This trailer, not this one, but like the trailer they showed in the Direct actually stood out to me. And I do think that this game is going to be day one on Game Pass, which means if you have Game Pass, you just get the game free. And there was a lot of, this isn't the actual trailer, but just like, this was at the end of the Xbox presentation, like this full, I guess, Outer World Direct. Yeah, they call it Direct, where they go over the game, like the decisions in the game, the customization of your weapon. Like it did legitimately stand out to me. I'm like, oh man, like, oh, and there's Ben Schwartz, I guess. I didn't watch all of this. It does seem like, oh, this is normally a game I wouldn't play, but maybe I'll go for it. And because I have Game Pass, I will. Most of the feedback
really
and discourse...
funny that they're calling it a Direct, now that I think about it.
Yeah, they're just fully like, yeah, whatever. We could call it a showcase or a state of play, but everyone calls them Directs. That this game, the main discourse I've heard is that this is the second $80 video game. That we know, the second $80 like popular video game, and that's just the standard edition, and that is it on Steam. So maybe it is free on Game Pass, maybe it is on Game Pass. I'm not actually sure. It looks fun, but I've seen people complain about the game being $80, and people already complained about Mario Kart. So it's really just a matter of, do you think The Outer Worlds 2 should be the second game to be $80?
It looks pretty big. It looks pretty expansive. So maybe, I don't know.
It's really just a matter of if you think Mario Kart is worth $80 or not.
Which I kind of don't, honestly.
Right. So at that point, like, is any game worth $80? I know, like, GTA 6 is likely going to be expensive, but
it's a meaningful question. I think the way games are monetized these days are, I mean, I was inclined to bring up the fact that N64 games used to be like $100, but games were monetized differently back then. The audiences were different. There was more manufacturing costs.
We got to bring back rental stores. That's the big market that's missing right now.
Dude, you know what you should? You know what people can do? I'll recommend this, or maybe I shouldn't recommend it because it means I'll get more competition. Borrow games from your local library. Straight up. Like, you'll save a lot of money.
Just go to your local library in general, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, honestly, like, I mean, that is one thing. Dude, I wish I could, like, work in some way at my local county in the library system. If I could do that, I'd love that. I mean, I think, I've played a lot of games without ever buying them because I got them at the library. And I think, things like libraries are important. Actually, you'll find this interesting because you're also a YouTuber. You know what they have at libraries now? If you're a teenager, you'll at certain libraries, at least in certain parts of the country. I mean, it's probably like more so in larger cities, but you can literally borrow like microphones, like streaming shit, and use Adobe Premiere at the library and stuff like that. You can be a YouTube stuff or streamer stuff or content creation at libraries now.
We're not at the library, but.
Well, I mean, you can use. I mean, they have recording booths. I saw one, like a recording booth. So if I wanted to, or I couldn't do it because I'm not a teenager, but if I was a teenager, I think I would literally be allowed to go to the library and record voiceover in a professional recording booth. Those things cost like $10,000 or some crazy shit like. I mean, not that much, but
I wish I had something cool like that when I was in high school, like some kind of like like a podcast class or something like that.
Instead of begging my parents to like let me buy like a $20 microphone, actually that reminds me, one thing I usually don't like kind of drawing lines between generations, but I will say that in the past 10 years, things like video games and YouTube content creation are much less weird than they used to be. Like telling people that I made YouTube videos when I was a teenager. People looked at me like I was speaking another language. Like that was just not a thing people thought of as like a normal thing to do.
Well, as a career, yeah.
Yeah, and nowadays, like, like I know so many people who told me that they take like video game development classes in high school now. And that's like insane to me. Like that I would have never dreamed of like having a teacher that knew what video games were. You know what I mean?
The only thing I ever thought was cool is I took like my senior year, I took a Photoshop class. Everything else was kind of just completely rushed off my brain. Like it didn't register.
I was like afraid to like say, oh, I would love to learn how to do this, because it felt like it was inherently juvenile to like, I don't know, like want to learn how to, like make video games. Like that's just not a thing they're willing to.
Especially if you wanted it to like be your career.
Yeah, that's not like a skill worth teaching. It's not like that's not like a field worth, even as an elective in a high school. Like that was beyond the pale. Like there was no video game club at my school or anything like that. That stuff hadn't been, I think, like accepted enough to.
It's the equivalent of like when they ask you what you want to do and you're like, oh, I want to go to Hollywood. Like I want to be an actor in Hollywood. Like that is a job. That is a career path you can follow and do, but everyone kind of turns up their nose at it.
Yeah. It felt like even mentioning that I liked video games to teachers would like lower their opinion of me immediately. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I think the big change there is that millennials became old enough to become teachers. So because of that, you started seeing. I think that people who play video games in their daily life started kind of entering the professional world, and because of that there wasn't as much of a generational divide. I think that's a big part of it, because I don't know, like my parents, they basically were entering college when the Nintendo Entertainment System came out. Yeah. So like they never grew up on that stuff. If someone like who grew up, like I know people that are maybe like 5 or 10 years younger than my parents who play video games all the time. It's like what they like to do with like after work or whatever. So I think that's just kind of like a key insight to me that, what used to be seen as a total like I couldn't, I got so much hostility from people in my life whenever I had like my DS with me. So
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. Like the whole like TV and video games rot your brain. I mean, there are conversations to be had about, how screens affect you and, like the good and the bad and what you should consider when you use these kinds of things or how much time you use these kinds of things. But like I think it's a lot more nuanced nowadays because it's just such an integral part of our lives and people aren't as like ridiculous about it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of rambling, but I just kind of all this is to say is that I'm a little tiny bit bitter that at people that are like 5 to 10 years younger than me because they probably on some. I mean, it's not like there are still a lot of annoying things about being a teenager, but I don't think they feel as ostracized for liking video games and anime too, or just like nerdy stuff. I feel like nerdy stuff isn't as like relegated as it used to be.
Yeah, but I think that's good. I was right on the tail end.
It
I
is
think
good.
it
It
was
is
like
good.
my
It
senior
is
year
good.
when TikTok was first getting big, and I always like because I was on Reddit and YouTube and stuff and like Twitter, I would like oh my god, TikTok, that one's cringe. That whenever I wasn't engaged with this, but I would always just like people watch, and I was aware of the high school ecosystem, I suppose, of whenever anyone found out that like anyone in our class like had a TikTok, like everyone would like snicker behind their back. But like obviously everyone was secretly hoping they would go viral on TikTok. But it
Exactly.
it was cringy to try or to attempt
Dude,
it at all.
a very core memory for me is when I was in 8th grade. And to be fair, when people are that age, they just rip into each other just for fun. Teenagers are insecure, so they'll shit on each other over like the most basic things. But I remember I was on a school trip and I didn't want to go on this school trip. I was like away from home. I think I was probably in Philadelphia.
Hmm.
And one morning, we woke up at ass o'clock to have our shitty catered hotel food that I didn't want because I didn't want to be here in the first place. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, let's pull up let's pull up your YouTube channel, dude." And they just kind of like put on one of the videos and they were all snickering while watching it. Immediately when he put up the video, he immediately disliked it and everyone started laughing. And they
Yeah.
all just did this in front of me. And it's funny because now I have those same people, like a couple of them have gone up to me and asked me for advice regarding their own desire to have their own YouTube channel. I
Yeah.
don't hold it against them. I mean, it's like, I'm friends with them. This was like a long time ago. But, I think that it was a nerdy thing and kids are mean to each other.
Yeah.
It's sad, but, like
'Cause
I
everyone
don't foresee kids not being mean to each other
Yeah, I
sometimes.
still hate like I don't want people to watch my videos in front of me. I can't watch people watch them. There needs to be that
Yeah.
screen difference. So they can talk about it later, but I don't want to like if anyone ever asks like what I do, they're like, "Oh, let's bring one up on the TV." I'm like, "Nope, no, don't do that. That's okay."
I used to like showing people my videos. I don't know how I ever liked that. Nowadays, whenever someone who when people tell me they should watch my videos, but I don't think they'd actually like it, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And if you do, watch the whole thing or don't watch it at all. It's like you can give my video. I'd rather you just not watch my videos than give them a glance and hurt my watch retention time. Just straight up.
Is that how that
Like,
works?
it might not actually be that impactful, but I always think about, maybe like someone who does not give a shit about total drama or whatever,
Yeah.
watching like 2 minutes of my total drama video and clicking off. I'm like, maybe just don't watch it. Because I think YouTube knows, okay, this person watched 2 minutes of this total drama video. Maybe this video isn't that entertaining, and it's definitely not that entertaining if you haven't watched the show. Or
Yeah,
at least
maybe
for a lot
I
of
think
people it is.
I've just been lucky and have the privilege of not worrying, but I never really put that much thought
Yeah.
into how the
Well,
algorithm
yeah.
works or
Yeah.
how to promote videos rather.
One good thing about long videos is that they still have a lot of watch time. So I'm sure both your and my videos are long ones. They have very low average view durations because it's just such a long video. And
Right.
the people who even the people who watch the whole thing, like they'll usually watch it in multiple sittings, which I think counts as different views. I'm not 100% sure. And that's why YouTube doesn't rely entirely on average view time. They also value watch time in general. So
Mhm.
like, a video, like videos with like a lot of watch time, especially our longer videos, make a lot more money because there's more ads to play. And I think in general, like having a lot of watch time is good for YouTube because it means they can show a lot of ads in your videos. And frankly, that's part of why the animators on YouTube got so fucked over, because, you know, a lot of animators, especially back in the early aughts, they would basically make like a 30-second to 1 minute video every few months. And even though those videos did really well, they just didn't make enough money, or they couldn't make it. There were no ads to be made up.
I saw a tweet today that was like exposing how little like people with blue check marks makes or whatever, and they were like listing off what all the other apps pay you, and they're like, YouTube pays you 5,000 for 1 million views. It's like, well, that's not, YouTube doesn't go off of views; it goes off of watch time.
Yeah,
it depends on how long your video is.
That is a gross oversimplification. It depends on a lot more. It also depends on like whether your ad space is deemed valuable enough, which I don't exactly know how that works, but basically, you know, when it comes to auctioning, I guess certain kind of types of advertisements, they technically pay more because there's more demand for the space to show them. I don't know. It's all like data, you know, clustering gobbledygook.
Yeah.
But what you basically will have is, you know, it's a lot more complex than that. But, you know, it is true. I know this personally because I used to run Ancient Memes, and that account got a blue check mark even though I didn't even buy one because it had over 1 million followers. So I remember when they first started monetizing Twitter, I got like $100 out of it, and then I never got any more money. Like it just and I think the next time I like the first month I got $100, then it was like $13. Despite like not having the same amount of views, it just slowed down so fast. Which
TikTok's the same way. I don't even think I can get paid on TikTok anymore. I think I tried to do multi-stream on there one time, and then it like barred me from streaming for like a week. I think like the restrictions on TikTok are way more harsh, and that's where we get terms like unalive or whatever, because we use baby language over there.
I made this video once. It was basically like a parody of this regular show meme where Mordecai and Rigby smoke weed, but instead I got a bunch of people who do impressions of total drama voice actors to do it. This is years ago. And I posted it on TikTok. It got taken down because it had the use of recreational drugs in it, even if it was like a parody or whatever.
That's silly.
So they're pretty harsh about it. They're pretty strict.
Well, that's Outer Worlds 2 price tag, and also YouTube. This was part of the Xbox presentation. This shocked me. I was shocked when this happened. I did not think we were ever gonna see this again. I'm gonna wait for it to get past this aspect. This is, as soon as I saw this, like before, obviously we're looking at the trailers on YouTube, so it says the title, but I saw, that, I'm like, no fucking way. So this is High on Life 2, and this is a trailer that just uses music, just has a song. There's no voice acting in the trailer. So I'm very curious as to what High on Life 2 is gonna be like, because this was based around, like, oh, this is the Justin Roiland game. You know, he voices most of the characters. He does all the bits. It's a funny, silly, edgy game where your gun talks to you, and it's like Rick and Morty or whatever, at its worst. But after the assault and grooming allegations levied at Justin Roiland, the game developer has parted ways with him, even though, like, I'm not saying they did the wrong thing, but, like, it kind of seemed like they were dead in the water because the company was built, like, it was his company to make his game. That's all him. And I would think that, like, the game company would try and go in a different direction, even though I know the first game did well enough. It's so strange to me to make High on Life 2. This seems like such a strange decision.
Yeah.
Especially, like, keeping his same humor style. I don't know what they're going to do with the voices, because, like, that was my least favorite part, is how annoying... Like, I know that's the appeal of the game, but, like, how relentless that style of humor was. And maybe they're going to focus more on the gameplay aspect, but I'm really interested to see what they do. Yeah, Squanch Games, like, that is a Rick and Morty reference. What they're going to do with the voices of the guns. Hopefully they get other voice actors. Because, like, they've already publicly distanced themselves from Justin. This entire thing dumbfounded me, that this game even exists. It was so strange.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're making another one.
That's High on Life 2. Beyond that, this is a game that I'm legitimately excited for. Do you have any experience with the Meat Boy franchise?
I think I played a little bit of Super Meat Boy back when I was like 13 or something.
Did you play it on Xbox Live Arcade, or did you play like the original Newgrounds game?
I think I got it on like Steam, maybe.
Also, like this with this specifically, like this pipe texture. Like this is when we see the gameplay footage later, it actually has its own unique art style. But seeing this pipe come out of it and then the realistic ground texture, it looks like Nintendo hired this man.
Nintendo
like
hired
Mario
this man.
Unity.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, and then the coins have like if shading on them. But yeah, this is more akin to what the game is like. And I really liked the free game they released later for Celeste after the anniversary. It was like Celeste 64 or whatever, modeled after it. I love rage-inducing 3D platformers. This was the first game to really not have 3D platformer to not like have a live system where you're just instantly respawning. And I love that genre. And I think Mario Odyssey also went in that direction of just like, oh, you just lose coins, then you come back. I think lives are, I don't want to say outdated system, but I prefer in a modern 3D platformer, like not having to deal with it. And I am actually really excited for this because although I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm like a huge fan because I'm like, oh, maybe I haven't played all of them, but also there's just been, I don't think there have been a lot of Super Meat Boy games. I played the Flash game on Newgrounds, and I played the Xbox Live Arcade game because that was like a 360 arcade game, and then I had it on my Xbox One as well. I love Super Meat Boy. I think I beat it. I think I unlocked everything in it, but that was a while ago. I need to go back to the series. But I am just there's other games on this list that I'm just like, yeah, I'm very excited for this. Now maybe we don't have a lot of discussion points, but that's the Summer Games Fest. You know, there's only so much. But I'm excited for Super Meat Boy 3D. It's coming out. It doesn't say 2026 because it said 2025. Yeah, early 2026. Again, another game I'm excited for that I'm glad is not coming out this year. This game, do you know anything about Beast of Reincarnation?
Nope.
All right, I want you to watch this trailer.
Okay, I'm watching it.
Just do not look at anything else. Just watch the trailer. And I want you to narrate what you're feeling in real time as you're looking at this.
So that's a dead guy. Whoa!
By the way,
like
this is on the PlayStation YouTube, and this was a part of the Xbox presentation. All right, I'm going to pause it when I think I should pause it, and we can discuss.
Okay, so that's like a creature. You see all these okay, so the plants keep, I guess that's like supposed to be like the passage of time. Okay, so this like is like a death deer thing. I don't know.
Okay, pause.
What the fuck? What the fuck, dude?
So this is all
like
I've heard about.
This is like seeing your teacher at the grocery store. You know what I mean?
They are, they're not owned by Nintendo. They're fully allowed to make other games with other people. But this is just you can imagine what the feedback is for this game. It's just like, whoa, it looks so much. I don't know if this part does look better. Looks so much better than Pokemon, and it does. I suppose it definitely has a different art style. It seems more inspired by Monster Hunter, and Pokemon is obviously very inspired by Dragon Quest, so like monster collecting, monster designs. They have a lot of talented composers and artists on their team. I'm glad they were able to make something different, because I know, was it Little Town Hero? They keep trying to make games that aren't Pokemon, so they're not stuck to Pokemon the entire time. They want to be a multiple game developer. Even though they do Pokemon Presents, they're cheating on Nintendo. What the fuck? That's the thing, is it's a double-edged sword. A weird timing for me to say that. But Nintendo gets a lot of blame for modern Pokemon games when, Nintendo does not develop the games, even though they own a stake, I think, in Pokemon as a brand. But this is Beast of Reincarnation. And the one thing I'll say, I don't want to go to bat for Pokemon, but just like comparing these two, it is interesting that, to a fault, for better or for worse, whenever they show a Pokemon trailer, we're seeing in-game footage. It doesn't look good, but it is in-game footage, and it's funny that as soon as they're like, oh, we have to make an Xbox trailer, it's all like cinematics and cutscenes, because this is what E3 is like, or like the different directs are like. Yeah, I do not, I suppose, have any strong feelings about this either way. I like Monster Hunter. Okay. I'm excited to see where this goes. I hope it does well, just so you know. Obviously, if they don't want to keep making Pokemon games, not that they're going to stop, but I don't want them to be stuck to one thing. I can't imagine how taxing it must be to be stuck to one thing. But that was the most jarring thing, is seeing the Game Freak logo in the Xbox presentation.
Yeah, that was that threw me for a loop.
Mm-hmm. Looking at this trailer now, does this game stand out to you at all as like something you're like, oh, maybe it might be worth looking into?
Not particularly. I mean, It might be a fun game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a good game.
It looks more like, although it is a Monster Hunter-esque game, it looks more like a soft Souls-like Monster Hunter. Find it. The Game Freak logo on the Xbox presentation. And it's a fun concept. Hopefully we learn more about the game, but as it states right now, it just looks fine, I guess. This is another example of what I was more worried about that I would be focused on. Like, I don't have a lot to say about the game, but I know that the series exists and is a popular series. I was more of a Skate guy. Like, I would play Skate 3. I never played or grew up with any of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. I think the only announcement, I don't know if they're going to show it, is the guest characters they announced for this game. I don't know if this is the trailer either way. Oh, wait, no, yeah, it is. Because we knew that Doom Guy was going to be in this game, and now we have this. I really love this design for Michelangelo. It's using the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, and this seems like this is an obvious decision. Of course you would have this character in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. This is 3+4. And this game in general, like the ones I always hear people talk about are Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. So them remaking and porting 1+2 makes sense. And this one seemed like just kind of a necessity, like, oh, now we have to remake 3 and 4. Do you have any enjoyment, any reverence, any relation to the demo is available today, to the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise?
I've never played any of the games. That's like another game series. That's a game series that, like, when I first heard of it, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to play that shit. Like,
yeah, it sounds like a licensed game.
Well, I guess I mean, I guess in some ways it is. But because it's licensed, like as a kid, I always thought like, yeah, I don't want to play that shit. Mm-hmm. It was also not accessible for me because I'm pretty sure it was only on like PlayStation, or at the very least, I think
it's one of those games that they would release.
Maybe it was on GameCube.
Yeah, they would release on console and GBA, but like and Game Boy Color, but like the handheld one was like an entirely different game because it had to be.
So I mean, at least at first, I didn't really have a way to play them. As I got older, I mean, I heard enough about it that I thought, okay, I mean, there's enough buzz about this game that I think there's a decent chance it's pretty good. But I just I don't know anything about skating. I was more of a scooter kid.
Dude, I was too. I always loved the culture. I feel like such a poser. I like the aesthetic of it all.
Dude,
and
skateboarding
like I said,
terrifies me.
I fell on my tailbone a ton. I like over prepare. I got my knee pads, my elbow pads, my helmets, like wrist tape. Like it's also just like there's no neutral place to practice. Like you could find an empty parking lot maybe, but it's either you're in the road where cars are going or you're at a skate park where people already know how to skate
and like make you feel bad for yourself because you suck at it. Like
I'm a 30-year-old man.
Also, it's like yeah, no, I mean I feel like I'd have a hard time trying to learn how to skateboard, being my age.
But I did play a lot of Skate 3 for the Xbox 360.
If anyone, I should encourage all of our viewers that if you're an adult and you want to learn skateboarding, don't let my self-critique get in the way.
There's still time. It's never too late. We got to make I Saw the TV glow, but for skateboarding. We got to break a lot of new ground. How much more do we got on the Xbox presentation? Oh yeah, we have this. This is another like soft example of what we saw with Game Freak. My friends brought this up when I was playing Mario Kart World with them, and they seemed way more excited. I was always under the assumption that, like, Gears of War sucks. Like, I always heard that people didn't like it. And now I'm hearing that it was actually immensely popular, and it sold the 360, and everyone loves this series. This was always one that, like, I thought was the prime example of, like, brown and gray generic shooter. But apparently I was just listening to the wrong people.
That's how I felt about Mission Impossible when you guys started when you started talking about it on the stream.
Oh yeah,
like, I was like, wait, people respect those movies and consider them good. I assume I assume that like everyone rolled their eyes at it.
Yeah, like generic action films. It's got cross-play and cross-progression. This is one of Xbox's, just like Xbox Studios in general. I'm not talking about like the companies they own. One of their 3 series, I think. They just have the 3, and it's like Halo, Gears of War, and like Forza, maybe. But this is first of all, this is a remake of the first game, but it's still a modern game. So I was surprised to see that they still have split-screen co-op, but I'm happy to hear about that. Are we talking Gears? We're talking Gears. Gears of War Reloaded. And it's coming out for Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation. I think the first Gears of War game to be on the PlayStation. So it seems less and less that anyone cares about exclusives. Because I think Xbox understands that although Game Pass is really good, that when people are buying a modern console, the PS5 is selling better. I think it's only a matter of time before we see Game Pass on the PlayStation, because it's already on the PC. Or maybe on the Switch too. That would be kind of cool. It's like $15 a month, maybe.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that seems like a really good value, all things considered.
Right. I signed up for it again just so I could play the new Doom. Because like if you $15 a month, you got free Doom, you got free Indiana Jones, Starfield. There are games that have like. No, go ahead.
Because there's so many games that like you're not gonna play for more than a month. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I pay $15 and I get access to this game. I don't have to like buy or I don't have to like get it by mail like with GameFly or whatever. You know, on some ways it's a pretty good deal, especially if it's like, you know, I mean, and if you love the game enough, like you can just buy it and it's like, okay, well, I spent $15 to borrow this game when I could have just bought it, but I mean, you know, it's like it's not the end of the world.
It's like the reverse Nintendo, where Nintendo has a really good environment for game developers, but it's kind of consumer unfriendly, where Xbox is super consumer friendly, almost to a fault, but they keep buying studios, running out of money, and then laying off everyone in that studio. So I'm not even gonna say like, oh, I wish I was spending more money, because Game Pass is a really good deal, but like, I guess there's got to be some give and take somewhere. I was
always intimidated by Xbox. I don't know why. I think it's because like
rather them like license video games from other companies to have on Game Pass as opposed to buying those companies. So like Xbox owns Activision now, so like all the Call of Duty games are going to be on Game Pass like forever, or it's for the foreseeable future or whatever. They also said that moving forward, all the upcoming Call of Duty games are also going to be on the Switch too, or just like Nintendo in general. So we'll see how long that lasts. But I would rather them like, oh, let's license Activision to allow exclusivity or timed exclusivity for Game Pass, or have all these games on Game Pass, as opposed to them buying the company and then laying off everyone. But yeah, I've never played Gears.
I'm surprised that the idea of Xbox Game Pass being on Switch is not that far-fetched, but I don't know, it just seems that like, at least for Microsoft, the way they monetize Xbox is so different than like, I guess, like how video games have historically been monetized, that maybe it's not so crazy. I don't know. I'm just kind of lost in thought about that right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad Gears is being remade. I think Gears 1 was like a 360 launch title. So it makes sense that like the first one was really, really big. I just remember there being like 5 of these games, and only the most like the people I never wanted to play games with were the ones that would play this game. And maybe I just didn't give it a chance because I was focusing on how it looks rather than how it controls. But maybe it's really fun. Maybe it's one of those hell yeah style games. I'm going to skip over this real quick. It's because there's only 2 games that were left in the Xbox presentation. One of them is this game. It seems like it is if you're not interested in the Marvel 4v4 tag fight, 2D tag fighter, there are multiple ways to get you into a tag fighter, into a fighter in general. And you were saying earlier that like a lot of regular 2D fighting games seemed rather daunting. And I saw a lot of pushback on this game, that people were upset that it was a fighting game. And then I saw another tweet that's like, oh yeah, I forgot that some people legit just don't like fighting games. Which I think is really interesting, because I love the community aspect of fighting games. But this is Invincible versus a 3v3 tag fighter in the universe of Invincible. And I don't know what the roster is going to look like, but when the I guess quotation good guys show up to assist Invincible, because there's we'll get to that part. First of all, I'll focus on this. This is obviously just a cutscene, but I think it would be fun. My thing is, like, what is going to hold this game apart from Dragon Ball FighterZ, or even, like, Marvel Tokon, or Guilty Gear? And I hope it's sort of like Tekken, that all the worlds are destructible. I think that would be a really fun concept, because all the characters are going to be floating around, so I think it's going to be closer to Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
I know they're just using this... No, go ahead, sorry.
I'm actually curious, like... my pessimistic idea is that, like, the only thing it's really going to try and do as a gimmick is just gore. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah. But, I mean, to be fair, like, I feel like if the right people make this game, they can probably do something pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't love Invincible as an IP as most do, but I know this is just a concept trailer. But these characters seem to control a lot more fun. You know, Rexplode, Invincible, Adam Eve, because they all have different powers. I really hope it isn't like a Dragon Ball FighterZ scenario where there's like 12 Omni-Mans, give or take, on the roster that sort of control the same. I'm excited to see where it goes. I think this and Marvel are going to get a lot of people into... Oh, now that I'm seeing gameplay footage, I actually don't know how it's not... Okay, this looks better than that one just looked. It seems like there are 3... I forget what they're called. I seriously do not remember. I'm not super... Okay, I'm definitely not remembering a whole lot of Invincible. They're from the planet they're from, whatever. The strong guy, the Omni-Man style fighters that I really hope don't control the same. I hope they all have different gimmicks to them.
Oh god, what are they called?
I know, right?
Viltrumites,
yes, the Viltrumites. There's a lot of characters in the Invincible universe because, you know, it's like Venture Bros. It's just both DC and Marvel. I think we're going to see an influx of people who don't even really play fighting games or maybe only play Mortal Kombat getting really into these tag fighters. Because if Dragon Ball wasn't the game to do it, it's gonna be these. Obviously, I just prefer more fighting games to exist in general because I like watching fighting games. I like following people who play them and like following the trajectory of their careers. I don't know if this is necessarily a game I would like play a lot, but I am at least a little interested in it, and it says it's coming out in 2026, which I'm happy about because again, any game I want to see that's coming out, I did not mean to open that, coming out later, I'm happy about. Speaking of games coming out later, this is one that you wanted to talk about, and also we heard about or talked about in the previous podcast. This is the official announcement of Persona 4 Revival. The interesting thing about this is not a gameplay trailer or a story trailer. This is a teaser trailer. And we don't see... This is a 45-second trailer. That's not including the logo, the outro, the intro, all the little screen tags, all that. And I saw some people saying that maybe the game was leaked earlier than expected and this game was not ready to be shown off. It doesn't look bad. Does this look bad? Or look bad compared to Persona 4?
I've heard people complaining. And I don't actually know what it mostly comes down to. I think it might just be because they seem to be a little bit heavy-handed with a lot of the like lighting and lens flares and bloom and stuff like that. Like a lot of modern games are. Mm-hmm. I know people are complaining about that. I don't really think it's like it looks bad, to be honest. I mean, I guess I'm not really particularly bothered by it. I'm curious to see what the HUD and stuff will look like, because that's a big part of, I think, Persona's like visual aesthetic direction.
You've played Persona 4, to be honest, right?
Yeah, and I love Persona 4 a lot, so that's what but honestly, I guess part of me just doesn't really think this game needs to exist that much. And the reason I say that is because Persona 4 Golden, like, is not a hard game to play. It's very easy if you want it to be, if you play on the easiest difficulty. And I don't think there are many like quality of life issues with it that are particularly egregious. So because of that, like I'd rather just play Persona 4 Golden. I feel like that's truer to the original vision of the game. You know, I mean, I like the old visual direction. I like the kind of like little Playmobil kind of models and stuff like that. And I guess honestly, like for me, I'd rather play that, or at the very least, it feels, I don't know. I just don't really find the idea of I guess the best way of saying, I don't find the idea of remastering it or remaking it with like all new graphics and models to be that enticing. Like, it might be fun, but I don't really, I don't see anything that's going to pull me in that direction that the original Persona 4 can't do, or at least the Golden version. Because at least for me, I think the best thing about remakes is quality of life stuff. Because
you keep talking about this. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, sorry. I think for me, you know, when it comes to remakes, the most important thing is that if is potentially ironing out playability issues. You know, for example, I haven't played Persona 3 yet, but when I do, because I really want to, I'm going to play the remake. And the main reason, there's a couple of reasons. I've heard a lot of complaints about how it plays, particularly with the fact that your party members you can't control them. They're controlled by AI, which is really weird for a turn-based RPG. There's like weird things like that. And also there's the whole conundrum, the definitive version of the game being such a debate. Like, some people say it's FES, some people say it's portable, and I don't know, that as I said earlier in the stream, I really don't like when there are several versions of a game in general. I kind of wish that every game was just like I hate when there's like any debate on the definitive version of a video game. That's the best way of putting it, just because it kind of makes me unsure if whether or not I'm playing the best version I can be or whatever. It's more of a nitpick. I mean, I understand why more options is good, but I guess that's kind of why, like, I am a little bit hesitant, but I don't really have a problem with it. I guess I'm excited about it because I think, you know, more Persona is cool, but I'm also not really that enticed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Responding to what the YouTube chat said, there was some controversy that the former P4 voice actors actually came out and said they weren't in the game. That's why people think Atlas revealed it early. Well, I think if the argument is that they did reveal it earlier than expected, I think it's because not the controversy of the voice actors, but rather the voice actors leaked it by saying like, hey, I'm not in this Persona 4 remake, and people didn't even know there was going to be a Persona 4 remake.
Yeah, it was speculated, but
it was like a week before.
Yeah, and I guess some people are mad about that too. I that wasn't talking about that specific backlash. I remember a lot of people complaining about how the game looks today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's most just kind of, being a little bit heavy-handed with the way the game's lit and stuff like that. I think there's something really nice about the bright, colorful direction that they went for with the original Persona 4. But, that's not particularly bad for me. I will say, though, the voice actor thing is something I'm a little bit more split on. I said initially, I think last week when the original voice actor for Yosuke said that he wasn't in Persona 4, the remake, said that he wasn't in. I was a little bit more tepid on it. I think because I don't want to be the guy that just immediately discounts stuff because it doesn't have the old voice actors. I feel like that's often kind of a weird hill that people die on, that like a character can't be the character if it doesn't have its original, if they don't have their original voice. But I guess since we found out just a couple days ago that the original, or not the original, but the voice actress for Peach of the past like 20 years, or maybe more like 15 years, just kind of got, I guess they're not working with her anymore. I don't know if it was like a more like aggressive firing, but they're not asking. They've recast Peach, and this lady said that she'd happily do it for the rest of her life. I guess I can kind of understand why characters occasionally need to be recast, but at the same time, I think that keeping the original voice actors is valuable in its own right. And I think that, someone being forever linked to a character, I think that there's something beautiful about that. So I don't know. I'm kind of split. I'm not exactly sure what I think. I don't really see the reason, at least right now, to change the voices of the current Persona characters, just because, in large part, because the actors themselves are still like a healthy age. At least most of them, or at least the ones that
Yuri
were
still voices like characters in
are still are. I mean, most of them, because I know there have been occasions where one of the voice actors or some of the voice actors were like retired or something. And that makes more sense. But I think in general, it's nice to have the same people voice the same characters. I definitely prefer that over the voices changing all the time. God, there was something I wanted to say. I'm not good at like speaking
about the leak, or about the voice actors specifically.
About the voices. Oh yeah, I guess, because I think there are extreme cases where characters probably should be recast. I think the biggest example I can think of is Marge Simpson's voice actress, where she's really just, she's an old lady. I mean, I think for her,
yeah,
she's clearly has a lot less energy than she used to, because I think she's over the age of 80, I'm pretty sure. And also doing that kind of raspy voice probably hurts for her. I can understand why recasting characters is important for especially situations like that, but I don't know. I think that there's something valuable about, if you can preserve the initial performance, I think it's good to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, that's the extent of Persona
Like
4. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What Xenoblade X did, actually, the Definitive Edition, to be fair, this isn't a full-on remake where they kind of are making a bunch of new stuff from scratch. This is just basically like a heavy remaster where they have like all new models for the main characters, which will look a lot better, honestly. I think Xenoblade X is what I wish the Xenoblade art style of every game after 1 was. Like, for all the new voice lines where they couldn't get the original actors back, what they did is get just a new voice actor. So, for example, and I mean, it's a little jarring that suddenly this guy in this mission has a completely different voice, or at least a pretty different voice. But I'd rather have that than just, let's like recast this entire character and and record all these new lines, etc., etc.
That would make sense, yeah. But in the same realm of because this leak got announced, or not announced, but like we learned about it right before last week's podcast episode. But this has been a very busy week, and after the episode, but before we got actual information. First of all, Mortal Shell is made by people who used to work for but Blizzard, I think, and it seems like very much like a Doom Eternal or Doom, like a just hell yeah style game. Death Stranding 2 on the beach is still confusing. This is just a cutscene story trailer. Anyway, this game, Sonic CrossWorlds, which we already knew about going into the year. It was actually announced, I think, before Mario Kart World, so it's kind of a shame that they know they're releasing this kart game. That being said, at the Summer Games Fest, when I think the director or creator of Sonic came out and was talking about the game, he said, unlike another kart racer, this one's crossplay, which is a little cute. I think sometimes when it comes to comments, actually, I'll get into that in a sec. We'll actually transition from here. But there were a number of character leaks for the roster of this game. And everyone was wondering how this game was going to compete with the other kart racers coming out this year, or other racing games like that of Mario Kart Worlds and Kirby Air Riders that have been waiting a while for a new game. Granted, it's been a while since the last Sonic racing game, I believe. And not that I'm against them using cars, but I think I prefer the Riders games, even though I didn't play a lot of those, like being on boards. And I'm glad that they have some of those characters and you could choose to be on boards. Weirdly enough, it seems like the trick system is a little better in Mario Sonic. But did you see any of the before this was shown off, and then Ichiban from Like a Dragon? These are other Sega series or series side of Sega. But there are a number of characters and this is Joker Persona, of course. Characters that, so there was one large leak of all these characters. And now it's all but confirmed because some of the characters in that leak, and we saw like images of it, like it was actual like in-game dev footage leaked of characters that are going to be in CrossWorlds in this, and there are characters shown in this trailer that were a part of that leak. So yeah, we know that is the case. And then I want to see if they show the DLC afterwards. Yeah, the driving around in a Minecraft world as Steve and Alex. So now that we know, and that looks like the Creeper as well. I don't know if that's a playable character, but this is part of a DLC pack, like Game Pass. I don't know how it works, but there's going to be different DLC releases for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. So there's other characters, like, weirdly enough, the Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Aang from Avatar that were also part of that wider leak that I thought were going to just be in the base roster. But now it seems like they'll have their own DLC pack. But I think it is really funny that this is kind of what people wanted Mario Kart to be. They're like, oh god, I hope like Kirby's in it or Pikachu or all these different Smash Bros. Characters. Where it seems they've gone in opposite directions, where Mario Kart focused on like tertiary Mario characters. And while I would have preferred some very like deep cut Sonic characters, because there are a lot of those, and some of them even have like their very dedicated fans. I think it's funny that they just went all out with their third and fourth party characters because it is a dimension hopping game. I'm sure the game will be fine enough. It'll be fun. I think Sonic fans will like it. And I think it is fun to have all these crossover characters. Having a kart game that's crossplay, but I don't, it's unfortunate the deck rather, it was dealt in releasing this year. And that's how I feel with there's a certain style of game. I guess there's different genres of games that it is a genre like there are other ones, but I can't imagine why you would need to play one that isn't like the main one. Like I know it's a little unfair to call Rivals or Multiverses like Smash clones, but there are reasons not to play Smash, or I guess from a community tournament standpoint, but obviously like it's never going to be Smash. And I kind of feel the same way with kart racing games. Like why would you be I don't know. I don't want to be exclusionary, but obviously, like, no kart racer is going to be in the level of hyper enjoyment of a Mario Kart. And I kind of feel the same way. Oh, no. Sorry, go ahead.
I can only see it if you fucking... Sorry, I don't know why I'm cursing.
You're good. I fucking hate this game.
I can only really see it if, for whatever reason, you like Sonic a lot more than you like Mario to really prefer the Sonic racing CrossWorlds over Mario Kart.
Right. Or maybe really you can argue SpongeBob.
That, or really like SpongeBob, or really like Garfield. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the same. I was gonna also make the point that I mean, I think one of the big reasons I don't play, I've never really bothered to try Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Is because if I had to choose between what means more to me between Nickelodeon cartoon characters and Nintendo characters, I think Nintendo characters win like no contest. So like I don't know, there's something that feels a little bit cheaper about all the other games, or all the, maybe not competitors, but all the games that are inspired by it. That I don't know, it feels like, I don't know, a discount, grocery store brand. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of harsh, but I don't know. I even now, and this is really, really, this might just be me kind of like spewing hot air.
Sure.
But I'm seeing these collaborations in the Sonic game. It's like Hatsune Miku, and then the Yakuza character, and Steve from Minecraft. It just seems like they're like throwing in whoever they can.
I think that's fun. I don't think it'll ever match Mario Kart, but I think that's a fun way of getting around it. Just like do what you should focus and excel at the parts that Mario Kart can't. Like obviously Mario Kart's never going to be crossplay. Like why
are SpongeBob and Aang gonna be in here?
Because Nintendo would never do that, which is I think makes it fun. Same thing with crossplay.
Yeah, I guess there's, and it's funny because I think on some level Smash Bros is still, a bit of a crazy crossover of all these different worlds, but there's something that feels a little bit more elegant or cohesive about it than what I'm seeing
Yeah.
here.
Well, I do think that's why a lot
And
of the
it's
other
hard to say.
platform
I don't know.
fighters go in like go with cartoon characters or movie characters because that is, I mean, for good reason, the one thing that Smash Bros won't do. Like they're not gonna put SpongeBob
Yeah,
or Mickey Mouse in Smash Bros, which is good. I
yeah,
prefer that, and that's why I like those alternatives. But this game, obviously, we talked about kart racers and competing with others. There are some series that I just don't, not series, but genres rather, that I see people hold up all the time that I don't know how to feel about. This is obviously very exciting because it's an IP that people know. The big release announcement example of Scott Pilgrim EX, which is a new beat 'em up multiplayer beat 'em up Scott Pilgrim game. And the extent of my knowledge about this series, I mean, not Scott Pilgrim, but like the video game series, this obviously seems based on the Netflix show, is that the original was like exclusive to the Xbox Live Arcade for a while. So it was, lost media because you couldn't buy it anywhere else. And then there was a huge petition online, and then the game was then eventually initially released, and I bought it just because I understand like the hype and the reverence and the understanding of that game, and that's why I got it. But beat 'em ups like this, arcade style beat 'em ups, seem like a style of game that like everyone holds up like older ones, like, oh, one for the, oh, this is for the Super Nintendo or the Genesis or the NES, or this is for the arcade. And because they were for the arcade or designed initially for the arcade, they're not really fun or engaging because they're just designed, like, if you can respawn infinitely, they're not really difficult or engaging because those games are designed to eat your quarters at an arcade.
yeah.
And there have been some modern ones, like I really like Battletoads 2020, but I don't think I played enough of the first and re-release of the Scott Pilgrim beat 'em up. I love the art style though. Do you have any
Yeah.
opinions on Scott Pilgrim as a series?
I have like no opinions of Scott Pilgrim. Actually, I think I read back when I was a teenager, not a Scott Pilgrim comic, but I think a different comic made by the same person. And that's the closest thing I have to an opinion about it.
I mean, if
So I
I'm
just
going to
know
see
opinion.
a 2D beat 'em up, I'd rather it have a unique art style. And that seems to be the main thing with modern 2D beat 'em ups like this or Ninja Turtles or even the Battletoads reboot, that they have a lot more fluid animation because they can. And maybe I'm
Yeah.
not giving the series enough credit or the genre enough credit, but whenever I see a 2D beat 'em up, I'm like, I'm sure modern ones have gotten a lot better. You can really say that about any franchise that started in the arcade, but something about 2D beat 'em up specifically like don't really grab me.
Yeah, I've never been, it makes me wonder about, the if it's it made me I actually I don't want to be too pessimistic. It makes me wonder if it's like a thing I could ever truly enjoy. And maybe it is. I just feel like, okay, I'm never really going to have the childhood experience of like playing a beat 'em up at the arcade. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, this is
'Cause
another
it's
like new Super Mario Bros. Game where playing it by yourself, which is what I did, probably isn't the ideal way to play it. It seems like you would get four
yeah.
friends together and then play like that. Because like
I
the
mean, Castle Crashers is
I
a
was
beat
gonna
'em
say
up,
Castle
right? Like,
Crashers. Yeah, that's a good
they're
beat 'em
playing
up.
that.
I think they're built for friends, which unfortunately we do not have. But that's the
All these friend slop games, dude.
if we want to if we want to talk about large brands and friend slop, there's this game that I instantly thought the term friend slop when I saw it. There needs to be a term, and I'm doing this as a bit, obviously. I don't think that's a real mark against the game. For two-player co-op games that are like It Takes Two or A Way Out, because I think a Lego game is really fun. This is like a puzzle platformer built for two people. You know, games like Unraveled, A Way Out, It Takes Two, Split Fiction. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would call that friend slop. There's got to be a better term for that, for this title where it's only two people, and is it like couple slop, like E-Dater slop? Like this is the game you would play if you had a Discord wife and you're like, "Oh, let's play It Takes Two." Does that make sense?
Not really. Well, I'm not exactly sure how the gameplay of this game works.
Oh, from like
It's
the actual Lego grabbing standpoint?
is it just like a puzzle platformer, or is it
Yeah, you control these two little bits.
okay, so each
It
person controls a
starts.
bit.
Yeah, and then you can pick stuff up and build things to solve puzzles and platform like this.
Uh-huh.
I like the concept a
Would
lot.
would
By the way, I'm saying
would
this
Portal
mostly as a
2
bit. I don't
multiplayer
think
would Portal 2
2D
multiplayer be couple slop?
would what?
Portal 2 multiplayer.
Oh man, no, because it wasn't built for that purpose. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
It's just an additional
Okay.
mode on top of Portal 2. And I
Yeah.
think Couple Slop is more often than not like a platformer like this, where you're looking at the same screen. And maybe I'm just saying that because I really like Portal 2. Again, I'm not saying that Couple Slop is
Yeah.
bad. I just think it's a
I
really
was just
funny
curious.
classification
I wasn't
of game.
sure if you were if you were also including games where it's a co-op game, but also it involves cooperating to do like really obtuse things. If that makes
Yeah.
sense, or, like balancing things.
I don't even
or,
dislike this
you know,
game,
I
or
don't know.
these games. but-
One of the things I was reminded of is like I'm pretty sure Octodad multiplayer or something like that.
Yeah.
Where each person controls one of the legs or something.
Oh, would
and
over
you have to
would,
like.
is Overcooked Friend Slop or Couple Slop?
I think you can play with more than 2 people.
So Friend Slop, I see. Friend Slop,
Yeah.
I think, refers to like Steam games that are like the viral game of the month, where you walk around with your friends and play it for a little bit.
Oh, you're dumb.
Patience
If you
of
make
games.
video games or play video games, we hate you.
Yeah, we actually don't like playing video games. This game, I have no feelings on whatsoever. It's whatever. It's called Fractured Bloom. The only thing I have to say,
game.
well, if I was selling this, I would say like, yes, this is a first-person horror game. But we just talked about weird classifications of games. And at the Summer Games Fest, Jeff Keighley on stage described this game as Doki Doki Literature Club meets Silent Hill. And that instantly made me go like, oh. Like, even if I
Makes you
would
wanna
have liked this
vomit.
game, it instantly turned me off. I'm like, oh, I don't want to play that.
What about it is Doki Doki Literature Club though? Is it
I
like
think
is
because
there gonna be
the characters are like anime girls, maybe?
Oh, that's probably it, to be honest.
Like, yeah.
I wonder if it's because there's like any metaphor. Oh my god, that is such an art style clash. It's like all these like Unity library freaking 3D models, and then suddenly there's this anime girl inside of the world. I don't know. Dude, I hate video games.
Dude, me too.
I have
There's
not-
another genre of game that I'm gonna say this derogatorily, but it's actually a series or an idea, a concept, a genre that I really like, because we're going through this quickly because we're almost at 4 hours. And these 3 on the left are ones that I either am really excited about or want to play, or just really like. Ever since the popularity of Cuphead, there have been art style games that it seems like, aside from gameplay, the main pitch is how they look and what they were. So, like, this game, Out of Words, is a Couple Slop game, except it's all made in stop motion. And I'm not even saying this to be derogatory. I think this looks gorgeous. I don't think I would play it
It's a really
per se.
cool idea.
Right, it's a really fun idea. It's a really fun concept. It looks beautiful. Then there's this game, Mouse PI for Hire, which is a first-person shooter, but it's all like rubber hose. Like, these are games that... These 3 are the ones we're covering, are the ones I'm actually the most excited about. These
Who's
stand
making
out the
that
most.
game?
Mouse
PI for Hire.
Uh,
Is it the Cuphead folks, or is that just,
I
they
don't
just,
think so.
clearly
I think it's
inspired?
just an entirely different company. But like this, legitimately, like I'm excited for this. I'm saying
Oh,
these
yeah.
games
I'd
that
probably
rely
play
on
that.
their art style are my favorite type of game. And the game out of the entire weekend that I am the most excited for is this game called Felt That Boxing. This is all in-engine footage. I think a lot of this is gameplay footage. I'm so curious on how the gameplay is going to be, because obviously you could tell these are all puppets. The humor of the trailer comes through a lot. It looks very funny. And then you get to the gameplay aspect. It has all these unique characters. And you would think, like, oh man, how are they going to... These have to be cutscenes, right? Surely the gameplay footage can't be this. And then it gets to the training part, and this is gameplay footage right here. And it looks insane.
Yeah.
This is like the training aspect, and maybe there'll be mini games. The actual game is it's Punch Out, but puppets.
That's cool.
This looks
really cool.
so cool. I'm so excited for this. And then when they show the trailer or the logo and then it zooms out, actually, when do they show it? I like the character designs. I love puppets. I love Punch Out. And then music by Flying Lotus. I'm so excited for this game.
What?
I don't...
Dude!
Release date TBD, but out of all the games announced at the weekend, this is the one I'm most excited for. And then also they announced a new Resident Evil, and there's a new Yacht Club games. We're running out of time here. The last thing, this is the main game everyone should get. Felt That Boxing, I'm marking this on my calendar. One final point, I said earlier that, like, oh, they made a cheeky, like, joke, a cheeky jab towards Mario Kart Worlds when they were talking about Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. And this is a VR Deadpool game, and it's voiced by Neil Patrick Harris, and he's very clearly trying to do a Ryan Reynolds voice. And I wish they would just do a different take on Deadpool, but overall it looks fine. But the main thing I've seen people complain about is that they did a joke at the Summer Games Fest that's like, in canon, Deadpool wrote a letter to Jeff, and he was like, hey, skip that Silk Song trailer and play mine instead. And people got legitimately mad about that, and it took me back to when there was that Mighty Number 9 reveal trailer, when they said, oh, the difficulty will make you cry harder than an anime fan on prom night. And people were like, don't you know who your target audience is? This is awful. And I remember that. I'm like, guys, come on. Like, I don't even like Mighty Number 9, but this is, like, you gotta, that's not even that mean of a joke. Like, come on.
I'm also, whenever someone's like, yeah, dude, you're a nerd and you probably don't get any girls, I'm more insulted than anything, because it's like you're implying that that's like a thing I'm partially concerned with or value myself by.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't.
I think there are some jokes that are all in good fun that some people take.
Yeah, dude, women hate me. Whatever, bro. I don't care.
But yeah, after all that, I think Felt That Boxing is this like stood out to me the best until that Nintendo Direct coming next week. The next time you see us on Switch 2 Ultra, we will be talking about obviously the Nintendo Direct that's going to shadow drop between this episode and the next. We've gone on way longer than we normally do because there was a lot of E3 to cover, the modern equivalent of E3. Do you have any closing remarks before I very quickly ride us out the door?
Oh, shoot. Mario Kart World is fun.
Yeah. We did dedicate a lot of time to that. Well, thank you for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this. We will probably have a lot more time to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 on next week's episode. Unless they do announce a Direct, in which case, I don't know. Because for the next 5 weeks between now and Donkey Kong, we kind of have a lull period because the rest of the summer is going to be very busy. But I have been your co-parent, BH Ultra.
And I have been your co-parent, Switchy.
And now I'm hanging up.